that element.
Yeah, it's one of the really nice addition to Temple Storm's team. I think it's nice to see a refreshing perspective on the game. Like it's a lot more. It feels lighter, I guess, than some of the other streamers you might watch very often. Now we're gonna see her play today. I mean, she's gonna be starting off in Temple Storm versus Team Celestial. She's a part of the roster, and now we can look at all the classes. Anything stands out there, Trump, from those lineups from both teams?
All right, I'm taking a moment to cross-reference. I'm not
Sure.
surprised that Eloise playing Warlock Mage.
Yeah, I mean both teams are playing both of those classes with Hunter and Warrior, so it's like
and I
four.
think Hyped was twice that I think Hyped always brings the Rogue and the Warrior, and Gara's always bringing Hunter, and he's just switching up that 6th class with either Druid, Shaman, or Paladin. It seems like.
Right, today it looks like just 4 classes are being represented. Mainly, it's Warrior. Actually, only 3. Warrior, Hunter, Warlock, the main 3, of course, but I don't know.
The Mage as well.
surprised of
They're
no
sharing
Rogue.
Mage as well. You have Tiddler and Eloise both sharing the Mage class, so 4 classes are common about like among both teams, and then you have the Paladin and Rogue kind of being opposite to the Druid and Shaman from Silent Storm. Now, you know, Druid and Shaman are kind of considered, I mean, at least in the past few weeks, we'd say that Rogue, Hunter, Warrior, Warlock, Mage have been kind of the 5 common classes, and the 6th one always ends up being one of Priest, Paladin, Shaman, or Druid, but Silent Storm's playing 2 of those classes. It's kind of unusual.
There's no Rogue from Team Celestial, but it's maybe a bit surprising because I think Frozen Eyes is a pretty known Rogue player.
Yeah, like I have to say, maybe they're switching up the game here to take their opponents by surprise. The first game we'll be looking at is Hype versus Tiddler with Rogue versus Warrior. Do you think that's going to be an Oil Rogue from Hype? I mean, he's an innovator, but have you heard anything maybe about a new deck being brewed?
Normally, if you see it from Hyped, he's not really playing any kind of aggressive rogue. Normally, sometimes he did it. Like he played once mech kind of rogue, but I know I expect like a really all-version rogue with no assassin's blade.
Yep. What's going to be interesting is to see if Tiddler is going to switch it up into Control Warrior, which would be a really good matchup, or if he's going to stay with Patron.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Control Warrior would do really well in a case like this. But, you know, looking at this Inner Rage in the starting hand, I have to assume that's going to be another Patron lineup. No surprise, really, though. Like, there's no upset as far as the lineups go for Tiddler.
Which means it should be a pretty even matchup. The Acolyte is a pretty good draw. Did he keep Execute?
Yeah, he did. Looks like he did, at least.
Yeah, and I played this matchup a lot of also on the ladder and from both sides. I was playing a lot of Rogue recently because I also bought a lot of Rogue in the Team League. And what is so important is for both players to have their weapons, and especially for the Warrior. If you are drawing into your Despite and also Fire War Axes, it just kills all the minions from Rogue. And if Rogue can't really make their minions on board, it's going to be really hard for the Rogue player to make a swing turn happen.
Yeah, and I think the later it goes on, the more the Patron's able to abuse that board state as well. As much as Rogue gets the burst they want, maybe sometimes they run into the problem of letting the Patron accumulate all the combo cards it's looking for.
Tiddler has been someone who has really been a big advocate of adding a shield block into this deck, and in this matchup it should be fairly good. It'll cycle for usefulness since the Rogue is looking to burst for a rather exact amount of damage, so that shield block will help out a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that I remember initially it was kind of shunned by a lot of players who didn't feel like it was very relevant. But when you look at the metagame, it can come in handy against some of the bursts coming from Rogue, even Druid and Hunter. It's one of those things I've realized about Shield Block. The cycle mechanic of it, or the part of it is cycling, isn't just a waste of a card.
Yeah, really big tempo turn by Hype there.
Yeah. Preps out. And the second Inner Rage.
Yeah, a bit sad for Tiddler, as I said already earlier, like no weapon, and that's gonna really hurt you when the Rogue plays their minions.
The rogue's getting deadly poison. So the thing is, 2 inner rages have been used up on the acolytes, which means there's not going to be any left for the patron plays if those come out. And there's a really big there's a really big lead for Hyped. I mean, Tiddler picked up his Fiery War Axe after all said and done, but
Okay, there's the Fireworks. Pretty important draw there from Tiddler to finally deal with the minions Hyped is putting out.
Hyped is picking away, but Tiddler is getting stabilized a little bit. On using the 2 inner rages, I think that's okay, because you don't usually win this matchup with the patrons.
Yeah, and Hyped with a massive sprint here. This is insane. The prep sap into prep sprint on the when his opponent didn't have the answers for his early minions. I think that's going to give him a really comfortable position.
Yeah, prep sprint is amazing in this matchup. I even was thinking of it, and I think it is even fine if you keep it in your starting end, because normally before in turn 4 there is nothing more than an Acolyte or a Nomish Inventor on the board, so it's even fine to do it already really early in the game, and you need to draw into a lot of cards to win this matchup, so pretty nice.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind though is prep is such a power move, and both have been used from Hyped, so Tiddler isn't looking too bad himself. He's gotten to survive both of the preparations, especially so early on.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Prep can be used as the Tinker's Sharpsword Oil enabling factor, I think, is one of the strongest plays for burst purposes. So now Hyped is really just going to have to play for the board, like very tempo-oriented plays, but he won't be able to cheat his way using the usual prep plays, right? Usually that's how you end up getting that massive turn.
And Tiddler's got a little bit of a dilemma. He draws Emperor Thorsan, which is really good. You'd think to play it, but right now it's only hitting possibly one of the combo pieces, since you usually want to do frothing. In some of the matchups, you would really want to hit the Grim Patrons with it, but not in this one.
Yeah, and also the Patient Assassin is a bit of a weak minion. Go ahead, Thijs.
Yeah, it might be a bit risky to already go for the Emperor, because Rogue can also remove it really easily, and you are a bit low on lives, but I think he really wants to fight for a board. Like a Whirlwind with the Emperor will be really big here as a swing.
There's no Whirlwind here in Tiddler's hand. He's looking at this Patient Assassin as one of the biggest threats. Oh wow, I can't believe this. We're actually going to see a Patient Assassin kill something in a Patron Warrior match. Now that's something I didn't expect.
Well, at least the Patron might get pretty decent value. Tiddler can consider going for the Wildswing Patron Armorsmith turn. He can even get 3 card draws, or 2 or 3 with the Battle Rage, and get a lot of Patrons on board. You saw a Blade Fury already gone, so it might be a play he should consider, because there is now no way that he can OTK him now with a Frothing turn.
Yeah, when Tiddler sees that Blade Flurry, he must think, wow, that was used pretty lightly. It's only for a Gnomish Inventor. So he might assume, and I think Hyped would play this way, if he Hyped had both a weapon buff and another Blade Flurry in his hand.
Yeah, we're currently trying to get the Rogue's hand to be visible. At the moment, I think maybe Hyped is busy, and he's not getting the calls from the production team. So that might be why we don't see his hand. But you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if it contained a huge amount of burst, being how he used that Blade Flurry. Now he's playing around Patrons by sacrificing his board. Wow, gets a really nice second Shredder here.
Yeah, you see Hyped really loving the Shredders lately. There's always the discussion between people, what is better in Rogue? Is it the Teacher, is it the Shredder? And Hyped is really the player that says, yeah, Shredder and Shredder really makes this matchups better. Like, Teacher is not doing much with all the 1/1s against Patron.
Yeah, Trump, have you seen any, I know a lot of people do debate, between heal bots and teachers sometimes, 2 of either. I know Dog plays a version with 2 heal bots, 1 teacher, and he will swap it, in and out. But do you have any preference yourself for the All Rogue?
I think it really depends on what matchup you're expecting. It's mostly an alternation of Violet Teacher and Paladin Shredder, as opposed to Violet Teacher and Healbot. Healbot and Earthen Ring Farseer is usually the thing that alternates, because Healbot is better for a more aggressive meta, and Earthen Ring Farseer is better for a control meta. So all of these things are very fine-tuned to what decks you're expecting to face.
All right, so it's really more. It's about the opponent, I guess, at this point. And since you have so much data in a league format like this one, where you can probably use it, you can make educated calls as to what you're going to put
Oh,
in
here
your
we
deck.
go. Hype's hand. There is, in fact, a Blade Flurry and a Deadly Poison. So he was holding the second one just in case of Patron. So he didn't just use the first Blade Flurry too ridiculously.
A bit sad is the double Fan of Knives. Like, it's the worst card in this matchup. Into an Acolyte, into a Ghoul, into an Armor Smith. It's pretty bad, but...
Yeah, just you watch that ghoul pop out another, like that shredder pop out another ghoul. Just you watch.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
really
no
close, though.
trigger.
And,
Might work against Warrior, but I don't think this no trigger is gonna survive really long on the board.
Maybe long enough to freeze the enemy's warrior, unless he goes for the patient play or the execute, which I guess at this point in like against a rogue deck, what else do you have to execute really? Like at this stage of the game, are you waiting for Dr. Boom? Like how prevalent are those cards that you'd be playing around?
Yeah, there are not really big targets you're gonna execute anyway, so it might be the best here.
Yeah, you've got a second one as well, so I guess that's all right. No whirlwind though.
No, but there is a Battle Rage, so he can draw for 2.
I think this will be a draw 3 even.
Yeah, with the Death Bite, probably just triggering the Patron and the Warsong Commander. Man, that card is insane. Like, Battle Rage, a lot of people say, well, it's not, you know, objectively better than Arcane Intellect. Like, I've had some people try to argue that. But when you look at the outcome of it, on average, I think it does better than Arcane Intellect in many cases.
Sure, it's because this deck is built around Battle Rage, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. There aren't that many cards that really work nearly as well. Like, I don't think we have another card draw engine that's comparable. Although, Lock and Load's coming up.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I look forward to the new type of hunter that'll spawn.
Yeah, that's one of the cards, the archetypes that I've really been wanting to see the most.
That's pretty fun.
It's like, here, I'll give you all these patrons.
Yeah, it's pretty fun that he's using the Fan of Knives first. It doesn't matter, but it's just fun that you say, yeah, here, get some more patrons. I
don't mind
them
it.
anyways.
Exactly.
That is going to be the second Blade Flurry from Hype, though, and Tiddler does have another Grim Patron in his hand, so this is actually going to be one of the matchups where Patron Warrior can win with the Patron, since Rogue is out of area of effect. Hyped is really close, though. He's got 8 damage and only needs to get 7 more, but that's still a bit away.
Oil? Possibly another oil, but if the Armor Smith, like, I think there's a second one left in Tiddler's deck, unless I'm mistaken, and the first one died. I remember one of them dying, the second one I haven't seen, so there's a chance that Tiddler can just armor up way beyond Hype's range, and you know, he might just kill his opponent a lot earlier than that even matters.
Like, Tiddler is really pressuring Lethal here with putting him putting Hyped at 16 lives, and we see already the War Song with the Flooding, with the Whirlwind. Like, there is a lot in the hand now.
Yep,
So you just have one big turn. Sorry, go ahead.
It is going to be lethal unless Hype can find some way to heal or get stuff out. Looks like he's not going to get it. And here we go.
Oh man, the 4 damage backstab, and now the 4 damage to face with this Berserker should seal it, won't it?
It's going to be with the Patron. It's going to be 4 Patrons for 12 plus the 4 from the Death Spite.
Right, the second Whirlwind effect. Yeah, so another win for Patron here against the Rogue. Again, would you say this match is like even? Going into it blind, you'd say this is a kind of a 50% win rate matchup for both? Or would you give the edge to Patron slightly?
I think it depends strongly on how the Rogue is built. In this case with, let's see, it was the 2 Shredder, 1 Teacher, 1 Healbot version. I think that's pulling it a little bit more towards the Warrior's favor. You can build the Rogue to be a little more anti-Warrior.
Yeah, and double Fan of Knives is really hurting you in the matchup. It is just a dead card that you can't. That is even hurting you if you use it normally. So.
Yeah.
But it was pretty close. Like if Hype could, like if Tiddler didn't get that early weapon that he drew at turn 4 or 5, there was like 4 or 7 more damage or something used by Hype,
right.
And that will be put out the Rogue in a way more aggressive spot.
Yeah, you're right. The Shredder and the Earthring Farseer, if they could have just stayed up for one more turn, might have made the difference in the match. But I mean, congratulations to Tiller. So he's locking his warrior out. So for Team Celestial, that's already a decent start. Then again, I guess Patron Warrior is one of the decks that's most consistent at getting that win. So even though it's a nice win, it ultimately is not something that you don't expect. Like, it's bound to happen. It's just nice that he got it without losing anything. What do you think? What do you think Tempo Storm is going to queue again next up? Because Hyped might get benched if he goes out again with Warrior or the Rogue. So who would you send in this position, Dice?
It's really hard to say. It's how it's so early in the series. You really hope you just get the better matchups, and it's really hard to get them. There are so many ways that people can go. It is pretty risky to go with Hyped again because of the bench rule, and I don't see a reason to really take that risk. Maybe when there are 4 other decks left.
Right.
Yeah,
I, mean,
I think it's still
supposing
very
Hyped
early.
does go, and supposing that one of the teams on Celestial, one of the players on Celestial has a deck that's weak against Patron Warrior, then they can just queue it.
What's the weakest deck that... I mean, we know for a fact that Frozen Eyes has been playing quite a bit of Face Hunter. So if that gets queued into, Hype's Patron, I think that's going to be a big weakness. Maybe Eloise is playing Freeze Mage. Again, that's another decent matchup for it. We'll see if Frozen Eyes decides to go for a slower lineup this week, because he's been proponent of aggressive decks, I think, so far in this league, and it has cost him quite a few series, I'd say, against some of the more consistent decks from his opponents.
Yeah, speaking of Mage, even though both teams brought Mage, it's very likely that they're going to be different types of Mage. Tempo Storm known for Freeze Mage, and Celestial known for Tempo Mage.
I hope we see some Tempo Mage. What were you going to say, Thijs?
Yeah, I think for Celestial it makes sense actually to go with Mage. I don't know what for a Mage it is, but not going into the Warrior, I think that's something you definitely want with the Mage. So I can see him going with the Mage here, Celestial, but it's really hard to say this early in the game.
Yeah. So I've just received amazing news. Apparently there's a new legendary that I want to talk about with you guys that was announced. It's a 6-mana 6/3 that replaces your hero power with a better one. Basically making life tap cost no life. Gives your warrior 4 armor. Druid gains 2 armor and 2 attack. You basically double everything. Or you get some extra... Yeah, that's an insane...
Wow.
Warrior gets 4 armor. Basically double up everything. Totemic Slam instead of Totemic Call lets you summon the totem of your choice. Poison Daggers. You can get a 2/2 weapon as a rogue. Hero Power for Priest restores 4 health. Hunter deals 3 damage. The long-awaited Hunter buff for the hero power. Everybody wanted that, I guess. Oh man.
But it's really expensive for Hunter. I mean, going for a 6-mana 6/3 drop. But yeah, wow, what a card.
Yeah, summon 2/1/1 recruits. You thought Inspire wasn't good enough. Well, we just gave you a reason to abuse the hero power. Maybe those cards will change the metagame bit, but we'll have to see.
But with the Warlock, it's still the same. Oh no, there is no life going off anymore. It's just draw a card.
Yeah, it's like you got a
it will be it will be too strong to draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
She's so cool.
Wow.
Trump is in awe of the card. Trump.
Yeah, the value of this card.
What's the deck you play this in first thing?
You play it in every deck.
So Dr. Boom style legendary, I guess. All right. Well, I will get to see it in action as fast as... I can't wait to see it because it really makes the late game a lot different, right? If Hunter can't race with your Priest because he's healing for 4, then suddenly you're looking at a much better position. Yeah, it's looking good. Can't wait.
It looks really strong on the first position. The first look I get onto it, it looks really strong actually.
Yeah, Innervate coin.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, maybe there might be space for that in the Druid deck. Yeah.
Anyway, it should be kind of fun to experiment with. That being said, back to the lineups here. So you said you thought Mage made a lot of sense for Team Celestial to go with.
Yeah, I think if they expect not that they won't take the risk of going with Hyped again, it makes a lot of sense. I think for Team Celestial to go with the Mage, but I can also see them just switching up to either Frozen Eyes or Silent Storm.
Yeah, because I think you're right, because Mage doesn't have a terrible matchup against any of the 4 other classes that aren't, played by Hyped. So there's a good reason to maybe bring out that mage. Frozen Ice is going to be playing as Hunter versus Eloise as Mage. So if we expect a Freeze Mage from Temple Storm as Trump, Hylit, what are the key cards that really Eloise is looking for, Trump?
Eloise is going to be looking for Fire Blast, so that's good news because she's always going to have it. That's one reason why this matchup is so good. But other than that, you're looking for the armor stuff. So barrier, you're looking for heal bot, and you're just hoping to survive long enough, which often is doable as a Freeze Mage. It's a little bit of a surprise because you think that if you give Freeze Mage too much of time to stabilize and set up, that they're going to win. So you bring the Face Hunter, but in actuality, Mage can just handle it.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point. I mean, the mad scientist getting out the ice barriers and the addition of the heal bot as well. I mean, this is not a recent addition, but it's been played in a lot of variants or a lot of versions of Freeze Mage, and that's making the matchup even more consistent.
Yeah, one thing to say about Celestial is I believe they have brought the aggro version of Hunter all 3 weeks, so we're going to see if they switch it up this week.
Yeah, how does mid-range Hunter fare against Freeze Mage? Thais, do you have like any experience with the matchup? It's one of the matchups I
Yeah.
don't really pin too much.
It's a tricky matchup. There is the mid-range hunter normally also plays low tap, what makes it pretty hard because there is like high main or boom, and it's pretty hard to deal with. Sometimes it's really easy if you can get your early minions on the board, get a lot of card draw on, and turn 9 Alex is normally more than in time, but it's a really tricky matchup, and sometimes it feels really hard for the Freeze Mage, and it just goes the hunter's way.
I guess it's one of those matchups where against the face hunter you're more comfortable because you're gonna be wiping their board more consistently. But then when you start curving up or increasing the amount of health that the hunter minions have, then it becomes a little tougher for you because you have to get those blizzards into flame strike, get a good doomsayer at some point, which can be a little more difficult, I guess, for the Freeze Mage.
All right, let's see if they are bringing. Oh, Team Celestial has mixed it up. They're bringing a mid-range Hunter. That is a lot better against Freeze Mage.
Well,
Yeah, and
the shredders
Shredders
are good, right?
Yeah, Shredder is one of the best minions in this matchup
this
normally.
is a Warlock. Okay.
Oh,
Wait,
it's,
you what?
it's not
Okay.
a mage.
So we got lied to.
Brilliant
It turns
switch up.
Nobody expected it. All right, so Eloise is taking everyone by surprise here.
Okay, we're being
brings
told
out.
this is the wrong class, so they're going to probably replay with the correct class.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Oh, that
they
makes
queued
sense.
incorrectly. Makes quite a bit of sense. So Eloise is gonna go back to her mage in just a split second, and Frozen Ice. I mean, if you're expecting a mage, it's kind of unfortunate not to be able to keep that hand.
Oh,
'cause
what
that
was
a pretty
really
good one.
important was that you saw that Eloise had Zoo there. You saw a Flame Imp and some other cards. So that I don't know if it is like really a mind game that she also has hand luck, but it might be also important to know for the series.
So scouting, like having that information because of a miscue is going to give Tiddler, Celestial Steam a little bit of an edge there. Oh man, you know what? That could actually really play against them.
Yeah, like I don't know what for a mistake it was, so it's hard to say. But yeah, from Eloise, I really expect Freeze Mage. She bought it also the last 2 weeks, I think. She likes the deck, so I expect a Freeze Mage.
Right, and Zoo also was probably expected for Eloise to bring since she's played that in previous weeks. Although she does also know how to play Handlock quite well.
Yeah. So apparently
it could
we're
have been either.
getting word that in the rules, and I wasn't aware of this personally, but the miscue implies that whoever actually queued properly in this case is going to get the default win. So Frozen Ice is going to seal his Hunter class. So that's already a win for them. So they're going up 2-0 against Tempo Storm. These mistakes cost you quite a bit. It's a little unfortunate for
Yeah.
Tempo Storm. But if it's in the rules, then I guess you really have to make sure you don't make that type
it
of
makes
mistake.
sense, this rule actually. That otherwise you have to have a rule maybe to prevent people just from scouting classes and from information things, and yeah, it's kind of sad maybe for Tempo Storm, but you have to make rules like this to probably have to be consistent.
Yeah, I could see that. I didn't see it yet in the ATLC so far. I don't think I've seen that happen yet. at the moment. So this was like the first miscue of the entire event, so the rules are being applied for the first time, creating a precedent. And I'm sure Temple Storm will remember that for the rest of their series. That's
It's
a pretty
something you
touchy
do
loss.
once and then you realize, okay, I'm really gonna focus now. I'm not hoping that will happen again.
Yeah.
I think I also had it already once in a tournament. Like, I think it will happen to everyone sometimes, but then when you have it once, you will always focus on picking the right decks.
Yep. So let's speak a little bit about Frozen Ice has been kind of according if you look at the pure stats from the past week so far, Frozen Ice has lost quite a few games for his team, and Celestial is the only team I think not to have won a single match or a single series against other teams. So if they end up winning today, they've got this lead at the moment, 2-0 against Temple Storm, that could give them that advantage. I mean, it's really hard to come back from those early disadvantages, but it becomes increasingly easy for the opposing team, to queue their good decks into yours. So, I mean, do you think Temple Storm's lineup can really get the 6 wins against this one from Celestial?
I think it is still possible. If there is like a warrior and hunter out, then most of the people see that as two of the at least 3 strongest classes together with warlock. So I think it is still it can still go. It is too early in the series to really say that it's gonna be impossible for Tempo Storm. But of course, in 2-0, it's a perfect start.
Yeah, it's not impossible to catch up, I guess. That's the strength of Conquest and the best of 11. Trump, matchup, Hunter versus Druid. Your bet.
It depends on mid hunter. It depends.
depends.
Oh no.
Oh no,
But,
philosophical
if
answer
face
of
hunter,
doom.
if face hunter, then Tempo Storm's at the disadvantage, Gar's at the disadvantage, and if mid-range hunter, then Gar's at the advantage. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess Gara brings more a mid-range hunter, or at least a hybrid, not a full face hunter.
Yeah, I like hybrid a lot. I think it's still one of the cooler decks out there for
Ooh.
hunters.
But this is at least an face or an hybrid hunter, I would say. With the Arcane Golem and the Glaive Suka, it's at least pretty aggressive.
Yeah, this is not the best hand for a hunter player, though, I don't think.
Well, the Animal Companion is one of the minions you really need against Druid. It is powerful and the Druid can really deal well with it, but this side is really slow. Like, you need at least a Metsidis or a Creepy here to start the board going on.
Yep, sure does suck to hit the button. Gara must have considered Glaive Zuka as well, just to develop a 2-weapon.
How happy are you to do that, though? Like, because you're giving away maybe potentially a bit of information. Like, is Glaive Zuka played in mid-range often enough that it's fine to just throw it on the board at this point? Because what are you killing in a Druid deck, right? That's probably the reason why he didn't bother with it, is it doesn't accomplish much.
Yeah. I think you really want the buff on the minions also with the Glaive Suka. It might be really powerful. It makes... Yeah, what are you gonna do with a 2 attack weapon against Druid?
Yeah, it just sucks to hero ability, and that does put the hunter behind, but fortunately Druid didn't start with wild growth, so it kind of evens out.
Both
Yeah,
had
they
a
both
pretty
missed
sad
play.
turn too.
Well, I think the double swipe, though, in Silent Storm's hand is going to help him get out of sticky situations coming up. That's one of the few cards with double keeper, double swipe. I think his removal is set if Gar ever gets a really good board, until maybe high mains come up, if that's even in Gar's deck. Those are going to be able to carry Silent Storm quite a bit.
Gar develops the Knife Juggler Snake Trap combo.
Man.
This would usually be really good for Silent Storm since he does have the swipe, but it's going to be really tricky right now to be able to defuse that without getting...
But is he
without
reading it?
Something.
You've got a full clear, though. I guess if you're playing around Freezing Trap, then maybe, but otherwise you attack Misha, and you can probably just swipe the Juggler, right?
It's kind of tricky. I can see a keeper here actually to play around that freezing trap maybe, but it's kind of tricky. It's hard to say. Like with the secrets going off, there are so many ways to approach.
Yeah, the way that Gara played that secret, it could have been played as any secret. So by default, you have to play around Freezing Trap.
And Misdirection, of course. So, kind of a weird turn for Gara. Like, none of the options that I see him have really are shining. I mean, there's a good trade to be found, I guess, in the keeper. But
Yeah, it's pretty interesting if Gara wants to say to Silent Storm here, yeah, I got that freezing trap out, and if he wants to make that move, he is probably gonna trade into the keeper.
Yeah, and besides that, it's a choice to whether or not to stay on the curve or to play the Leopronome, since you have to play something alongside it. There's actually another choice. You can glaive Zuka, Leopronome, hero ability, if you want to go maximum damage. A lot of different possibilities.
oh
Wow.
man, always Huffer. That's a pretty heavy damage turn. That was 11 damage right there from Gara. He's putting on the heat here against Sandstorm. Doesn't have a taunt.
I kind of like the move actually. With the if you look at the hand with the Golem, with the Leopronome, also an Unleash, you really have to go aggressive. You know that you are not gonna take the long game, and before the towns are coming up in 1 or 2 turns, it might be really important to get all the damage in.
Yeah, you're right. Until you really... I think that's maybe the biggest weakness of Hunter, and has been acknowledged forever, is the fact that when their cards get depleted and they're in top deck mode, sure, once in a while you'll pick up, the lethal, but very often you end up falling behind, like, inexorably, you just lose at that point.
Oh man, Silent Storm attacked into that expecting freezing trap, and he's really going to be disappointed to see that. Because if he had attacked with the Shade, then he'd have been able to do this. That's not a misplay though, because it often is going to be freezing trap.
Yeah, but
gonna
now if
take
he
his-
attacks with the face, that's going to delay his Ancient of Lore for healing till later, and oh my goodness.
But also taking another 4 damage. Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty dangerous for Soundstorm here. I mean, you're never comfortable at 11 health against a Hunter.
I will never be.
Oh my goodness, and Gara stacking the damage. Is that lethal? No, almost.
No, it's not lethal yet, but next turn it will be.
And now he's giving his opponent the ability to play that Ancient of Lore. Arcane Golem might
Yeah, but that's
just
3
save
HP.
Soundstorm.
Yeah, 8 isn't going to be enough to dig out of it, is it? Let's see.
There will be 2
Uh,
damage from a Leopronome no matter what. There is 5 damage with the quick shot hero power.
Yeah, Innervate
Still
Hero Power
the
might
ability
save.
to play Unleash. Yeah, this is not gonna be enough.
It's going to be exact, just because Gara drew the Innervate too for the +1. I think
Yeah.
Hunter can do exactly 8.
But can he do 9? With Innervate Hero Power from Soundstorm.
Yeah,
I meant
it's-
can do exactly 9, rather.
yeah,
Okay.
he has 5 from the hand, 2 from the hero power, and 2 from the Leopronome, so it's exactly lethal. Hey, wow!
Well, That Huffer sit on the board for much longer than you'd expect the Huffer to. Very often that card just dies as soon as it's done damage, but I think it dealt 8, possibly 12 during this game. That was just a really, really crazy animal companion. Gara really... I think picking up the Misha first and then having Soundstorm play into Freezing Trap was a really big deal.
Yeah, it's a good move from Gara. Gara is pretty known for just moving up their trap. He is like using freezing traps, explosive traps, and snake traps all the time. So it's really hard to say. Some people you cannot really say, yeah, they're playing with these traps, but especially in this team, like, it's really good to just move a bit up with the traps. So it's really hard to play around it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's ultimately... Hunter has so many traps they can put in their mid-range decks that it's really hard to pin them on exactly what you think they're going to have. There are some of them you discount, like Snipe and Misdirection, you never play around, pretty much. But, Freezing, Explosive sometimes even in those mid-range decks. Some variants of it will sprinkle it in. So, yeah, there's a lot to play around with.
Snakes. It had to be snakes.
Yeah, Harrison Jones style. Why doesn't he say that when he comes into play? Instead of Druid of the Fang. I don't understand. I guess he's got a museum to take care of. So, the next matchup that could be coming up for Tempo Storm could be, just sealing the Paladin from Gara. Would that be a bad choice, going up against the entire lineup from Team Celestial?
I don't know what Gara is playing for in Paladin. You see a lot of the aggressive Paladin that is also really popular now on the ladder. But for a mid-range Paladin that Gara's a bit more known for playing, it has a pretty good matchup against Druid. It's not bad against any kind of Warlock version. It might be bad against Mage, especially if it is Freeze Mage, and Shaman is not that bad either, so I think it's pretty it makes a lot of sense that Tempo Storm actually bought Paladin against the lineup of Team Celestial.
How
the
did
good
they
news about
know?
Paladin is
Go
that there
ahead.
are actually quite a few matchups where Paladin is weak, but the Patron Warrior is out of the way, and Team Celestial didn't bring a Rogue, and Team Celestial might not be playing Freeze Mage, so those are the main bad matchups for Paladin out of the way. All the
Yeah.
remaining ones are fairly good. I don't think
It'll-
he needs to send Kara up right now, because all the matchups are fine.
Okay, so whenever he does come out with a Paladin, it could get a favorable trade. So is there something you'd want to win with, like, as soon as possible, being in Temple Storm's position?
It depends a lot on what Celestial's Warlock and Mage are going to be. Handlock, Freeze Mage, Tempo Mage, Zoo, even Malagos Luck, they'll have different matchups. You can look at previous history that Tiddler is probably playing Tempo Mage, and Frozen Ice is probably playing Zoo, but you can never be sure. In that case, I don't think Tempo Storm has many absolutely terrible matchups, because Zoo is one of those decks with not... Zoo's really good against Druid, but Tempo Storm didn't bring a Druid, and Tempo Mage is really good against Druid, but Tempo Storm didn't bring a Druid, so all their classes are fun. They have a reasonable shot with all the classes.
Alright, so I guess the Paladin's not as weak this week as it was previously, perhaps.
And I think for Team Celestials, it's really risky to go with Silent Storm again. If Silent Storm is gonna lose, then there are 2 classes being benched. And I think when there are only 4 decks left, it's really risky to have 2 benched classes.
Yeah, again, for those of you who may not be familiar with the benching rule, when a player loses twice in a row, he's unable to play until one of his teammates gets a win, which in this case, if Silent Storm loses, Team Celestial is going to be down to Mage and Warlock until one of them wins. So there's a chance that Temple Storm can snag those wins by queuing perfectly into them and just taking the favorable matchup. So it's not really that big of a deal early, I guess, in the matches where you have 6 decks open for both players and they're all, you know, willing to play whatever it is. But when it's down to this, where 2 players have 1 deck left, I think that's a little easier to play around. All right, well, we'll see who's going to be playing. Eloise is going to be bringing out the Mage against Sandstorm's Druid. Oh, man. It's a Freeze Mage.
Yeah, and then you see like maybe it's a bit of the double mind game going on where you are not expecting Silent Storm, so Eloise goes with the Mage to dodge the Druid, and then you go into the Druid. It's probably the hardest matchup now for Eloise with the Mage to go into if you know that the Warrior is already out.
Yeah, not quite the matchup you're looking for as a Mage player, because again, you know, Druid is able to muster a lot of burst.
It's not as bad as the matchup against Warrior, but it is a really hard matchup, especially against the mid-range Druid.
Begin.
Yep, Elise is going to have a tough one ahead of her.
Yeah. By the way, Trump, I don't think I've seen you play Mage in the league so far. Like, is there a reason you just don't play the class very much?
Yeah, my teammates play it better, so no reason for me to play it.
Right, all right. In
Yeah,
that team format.
Silent Storm. That is the sickest hand possible.
Oh man, Sandstorm with the ramp. All we're missing is a Grove Tender and a Nourish.
Turn 3 Emperor. There we go. Yeah, there's no way you mulligan anything out of this hand. Like, really, nothing.
Yeah, but if he's got Kibler's Luck, he's just gonna top deck Innervate and the other Wild Growth. Because that's what happened last time Kibler played a Druid in the Vulcan League, if I recall. Kibler just had the sickest ramp, and then he top decked Savage Roar, Wild Growth, Innervate, and that never went anywhere.
If Eloise knew what Silent Storm's hand was, then keeping that Fireball would be really good, since you could coin Fireball to answer Thorson, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen because you wouldn't keep Fireball usually.
Yeah, you can't really expect... Oh my god, is it Echo Mage? Well, the Explosive Sheep kind of tells me that it is, but at the same time, Explosive Sheep is not necessarily...
It might be just a tech card. There are some versions that play just one Explosive Sheep to deal better with the Paladins, to deal better with the Hunters, and...
Alright.
It might be Echo Mage, but it's hard to say yet.
I'm almost surprised
It's
that
a bit
Eloise
weird
kept
if you
it.
play an Pyroblast and an Echo Mage, so...
Yeah, and the Ice Bearers as well. Very often you see duplicates, and not so much. But she's on the same team as Hyped. So there's something to be said about Hyped innovating decks. It wouldn't be unheard of if something new's come up. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come out of Hyped. But it looks like a standard Freeze Mage up until this point.
Right. Actually, it makes sense to do the explosive sheep now that I think about our personal preparations against Celestial. Celestial was known for bringing a lot of aggressive decks like Zoo, like Face Hunter. So bringing a card like Explosive Sheep to help the matchup against Celestial in particular makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's where the team, I guess the scouting factor of previous weeks in the league format really comes in, because you can look at those past matches, have a vague idea of what the players' preferences are, and then adapt your entire lineup, or you're just stacking a card here and there that's going to help with that. So, good point.
And pretty sad turn for Eloise by not killing off the Emperor. You always want to kill the Emperor off as fast as you can, but not really the option right now.
Here's the really horrible thing. She doesn't have anything to kill it next turn either.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I guess this is gonna be a really good Emperor for. It's already an amazing Emperor for Soundstorm. Getting the Savage Lord discount and the swipe for 2 mana could really help him get a bit more reach later on in the game.
But there is not really a good follow-up. Like there is Silent Storm really needs a lore or a Doctor Boom or something that you can play on the board now.
There has to be a Nova Doomslayer here, right, Trump? Like, do you think this is a turn where you're forced to do it? Because the sheep doesn't do anything besides kill the only, like, just the shade. So you have to go all in on it.
If Sunstorm whiffs here, even though that start looks really good, it commits a lot of resources, and his remaining hand is nothing. So at least has a good chance of it if Silent Storm whiffs here.
Keep your top deck? Nope, not the esports we were looking for.
You can still kill it with swipe Savage Roar, but is it worth it to spend 2
Oh
cards
my
for it?
goodness! All right, so I guess you're dealing 1 damage to the enemy's face with that swipe. That is such a huge resource commitment, but he's not going to run into a Blizzard turn just yet. So I guess it's all right.
Yeah,
and
that's a tough turn to swallow for the Druid, but it is really good because you save a 5/3 on a 4/4, which grows.
Oh man, well that's good.
That's first of all, it's a pretty good pickup, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you can even follow it up with one of your 2 ice barriers. So again, that's going to put you further away from the combo range. You've seen 1 Savage Roar, so you've got to feel somewhat okay with it. I think Silent Storm picking up an Ancient of Lore would change the way this game's going to go from now on.
Absolutely. Without it, he'll run out of fuel. The Silent Storm has to make a decision right now on whether or not he wants to play all of his cards or if he wants to save BGH. No real reason to save BGH unless you're playing around Blizzard, which is a big deal because he's just playing the Shade right now. So,
Yeah, and it's turn 6 incoming, so I don't really want... It's a bit tricky to play the Big Game Hunter now.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dice. I think ultimately for tempo purposes you'd want to do it, but when you look at the possibilities that Luis might have that, since she didn't have an answer to your early Thorson, which means she might not have spot removal but a lot of AoE instead. Maybe that indicates that you're going to be more vulnerable by extending here.
and it's a fine call because if he had played it, Luis would have punished with Explosive Sheep Fire Blast.
And that Explosive Sheep would have been amazing.
Still tough spot for Luis because even though Silent Storm, we know that he's out of juice completely. That's still a big enough threat on the board to be scared of.
Do you have to Nova standalone here? Just like a straight up Nova with Ice Barrier again, so you get yourself a bit more time to find a Flame Strike, possibly. Although it's starting to be late for the Flame Strike with that Shade on the board. It's gonna go out of range of Flame Strike, in fact.
Ooh,
Yeah,
she makes the Brave play. I was thinking
I
there
actually
were
like
three
it.
plays here, and
It's
that
pretty
one was
good.
the most ambitious one.
Well, out of juice, but not for long. That's a nice pickup for Sandstorm. If he gets, again, more card draw, that's going to enable him to go a little further in this game. But again, the more he extends on this board, the more weakened he is. Like, how do you feel about just punishing... Like, you have to trade away your Shade, but if you do so, then you're suddenly even more vulnerable to Flame Strike than you were a second ago. So what would you have thought about playing the Shredder plus, you know, using your face as a trading... instead of losing the Shade?
I actually like that you always have the main... It's pretty likely there is coming up AoE. If there are 3 or 4 minions, the AoE will be played if there is AoE. So it makes a lot of sense to just trade with your Shade to have always that Shredder backup no matter what comes out of it.
Trade with your shade. Trump, you got some stuff for your rap battles. Trade with the shade.
Though, Noxious, because you do have your 5 health shade, which gets out of flame strike range. So I think both plays are quite reasonable there.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's
Silence
from the
on
explosive sheep.
Wow. How many times do you see that keepering silenced the explosive sheep?
I think
Turns
it was
out
a
to be
good
a really
argument
good
to
play.
be. Go ahead.
Saves
Sorry, what?
all of his minions.
Yeah, but I thought Eloise would keep that sheep maybe to. Oh, this would have been insane. I thought she would have kept that sheep to ping it on her next turn, you know, because she didn't have to commit to it and risk that it would get removed by the druid with a silence effect. It's kind of like playing Doomsayer, except in this case, you might be able to trigger your own Doomsayer for sure, whereas now it's kind of gone.
This Mad Scientist is, by the way, the worst draw ever. Because there are already 2 or the Barriers in the hand, the other one is already out of the deck. So the Mad Scientist is not gonna do anything now.
Yeah, good
The
point.
thing about the sheep is it speaks about like the observation power of everyone here, because in a vacuum that play looks bad, but Silent Storm was only at 1 card left and was just continuing to play the card he top deck. So you look back to the previous turn where you did a Frost Nova Doomsayer, and
Right, and he didn't do it. You know what? Crazy good point, Trump. You're right. Makes more sense.
She made the play which let her get away with an extra 2 mana and would have worked most of the time, but unfortunately she ran to the play where it didn't. It's like risk reward. You can also argue that the risk wasn't even worth it because she didn't really have anything to do on a turn where saving the 2 mana would have helped. So it's a tough call. But now she's looking for Flame Strike.
Yeah, and like, even Blizzard would kind of cut it because you've got the ghoul that you can ping and kind of create a pseudo Flame Strike AoE, but Flame Strike would obviously be the best. Thing is, a lot of mages only run the 1 now. You know, rightfully so. I don't think there's always room for 2 Flame Strikes. But it's become a trend where people have been starting to cut those things with the advent of Emperor Thorson as well. You know, that does cut. You have to cut somewhere, and cutting to the AoE to increase your chances to get a lethal later is something that a lot of people have been doing. Wow.
This is pretty sad. Did Eloise get like any card draw? 1 Arcane Intellect, I think, but no Loot Hoarders or Acolyte of Pains. It's going pretty rough here.
The thing is, I get the feeling that this is the same game I watched Forsen play in that mirror match Freeze Mage, where you just don't have
that one
anything.
was worse. That one was worse. Double
I
Flame
saw the
Strike.
screenshot from that one. That was amazing.
And it can only happen to Forsen. That's the feeling I get when I see that hand and when Forsen is playing.
Yeah, when you're lever nutty, I guess that's what happens.
Normally it's not even a bad hand, but it's just terrible in the mirror. Having all these freeze effects.
So, will we see a Pyroblast minion play? Like, is there a possibility that Eloise just Pyroblast the ghoul to kill the Drake? Oh, there's no way. This would be the dream.
Okay, guess that goes in the charge. Oh, is the bug fixed?
I think it's fixed half the time.
Oh,
So you're flipping a
not
coin.
fixed at all, are
I guess, I don't know. It seemed to happen a lot more frequently than it has recently. Although Blizzard did have a lot of problems yesterday when they were doing the event at the Foundry. They seem to be running a little bit of problems technically. Oh man.
There we go. Oh. You just have to go for it, I think. With the Pyroblast in hand, the second Ice Bug, you don't really have any more options than just pray for the best and see how far you can get.
It might work actually with the like an Arcane Intellect top deck into say Frostbolt Icelands, and then you play the second Ice Block. Would you have enough damage ever to kill?
No, it's still not gonna be enough. There has to be an Arcane Intellect with a freeze effect and hope that there is no damage output just from the hand. But we already see also with the second Lord that it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the usual thing of setting the opponent down to 1. makes it really hard for Eloise to make a comeback, even if she were at higher.
And still a swipe in the hand if there will any be kind of freezing.
Yeah, it is important to realize the intricacy of Savage Roar versus Swipe there, because Savage Roar can possibly, or Swipe can't be countered, but Savage Roar could possibly be countered with a Frostbolt to the face and a Blizzard or something.
Well, I think there's only... I mean, you're kind of forced to play Blood Mage, ping it, and hope for... I mean, there's no more Frost Nova, so you can't just Frost Nova and
There's
then
nothing you
Ice
can
Block.
draw
Yeah, but
into.
there's really nothing here, right? Like, there's absolutely...
It's like you just stall for one turn, but you already know. I think you know already yourself that it's not gonna matter.
Yeah, it feels bad when you're Freeze Mage and you have those two ice blocks, and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna die eventually.
Oh, wow. That's actually a really good card against Freeze Mage anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just a good card against Freeze Mage, but also against Handlock and Rogue. Team Celestial might have done their homework this week.
It sure looks like it, at least. I mean, they seem to be fully prepared. Although, you know, arguably we didn't really get to see the second game. What with Magic Amy. Wow, Eloise, Eloise misqueuing into Team Celestial, which caused an automatic loss for them. So.
Yeah, this is. I think this game, like you can still try to stall the game here by ice lancing the face also, but we know it's already over with Rack and swipe in the hand.
Yeah. Well, at least we'll get to see another Freeze Mage game. Again, this is a really unfortunate matchup for Eloise, which is queuing up with Freeze Mage into... you know, as we said, if Silent lost this, he was going to get benched. So I think, as you said, this is all mind games where they knew they were probably going to be facing off against someone else than Silent Storm because of the benching rule, but then Team Celestial counter mind game by queuing up Silent Storm with his Druid deck against Eloise's Freeze Mage.
Yeah, it's something that it is really, there is like, it's going on in all the teams, and you try to play with the bench rule, play around the bench rule, but it's really hard to approach how you are thinking and how the other team is thinking about it.
Yeah, like Trump, like how do you guys approach the bench rule as a player? How much does it weigh in your decision to queue, to manipulate the queue? Is there a huge incentive? Because some people say it's not really that relevant.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the people you've talked to have said like they just flip coins to the matchup and the bench rule doesn't even matter. And then some people are going to be like, oh, we can't possibly risk the bench. In reality, it's somewhere in between, and it's really hard to say.
Right, it depends, right?
It's just not. It's just important, I think, that you don't do everything the same time. That you don't. You should not try to avoid it every time. You should not go into it all the time. It's just that you show a bit of different thoughts on it.
All right, so you're not too predictable, even regarding the bench rule. All right, makes sense. See, that's less dependable, although it still is. So, going into the matchups here, we've got one deck left for each of Team Celestial's players. They're up 3-1 against Tempo Storm. They're starting to get to the point where their decks can be targeted. Is there one of their decks that would have an amazing matchup against everything from Tempo Storm at all?
I think Paladin is, if it's mid-range, it is really good against all of Tempo Mage and Zoo and Shaman. That's actually their best deck right now.
It's so hard to say if we don't know what the Mage and the Warlock is, because they also switched up the Hunter. And they didn't play with Druid last time, so it's really hard to say what the Mage and the Warlock is. But if we assume that, I will say also that it might be the best to go with Paladin.
Yeah. Also, if it is Tempo Mage and Zoo, then Patron Warrior is also very good against all three of those decks. But when you're up against Celestial, like they say, it's hardest to face an opponent who's backed against the corner like Celestial was. They can pull off anything. When you are a 0-3, you have like nothing to lose almost, and you just need to try something radical in order to get back in the right direction. So they brought mid-range Hunter instead of Hunter. Are they going to bring two other different decks? We'll see.
Yeah. So, guys who are watching this, if you want your message to show up on the stream, there's a Twitter feed at the bottom. So, if you have commentaries about the game, comments about the game rather, feel free to post them. You know, hashtag ATLC. They'll show up at the bottom, whether they're nice words, mean words, or just comments about the about the games that have been played. Enjoy it. So I think Sandstorm Shaman could be a little bit of an upset here. You know, it's one of the classes. I know Kibler's been playing it pretty much, you know, what, 100% of the time? I think there's one week
Yeah.
he didn't bring it, like week 2, and he ended up, he still went undefeated, but it's been very good for him. I wonder if it's going to be as good for Sandstorm.
It's also doing pretty well for Radu. I think he bought it 2 times in the 4 matches, and it went not like 2-0, but I think 2-1 or 2-2. So it's not that the Mech Shaman is bad at all, but you need to do it at the right times into the right matchups, I feel like.
Yeah, in this case, if it is mech, which it probably is, it's strong against, I think, 3 of Tempo Storm's decks and weak against 2 of them. Sunstorm's
Yeah.
going to want to dodge the Paladin and the Zoo matchup.
Yeah, Silent Storm is a bit known for playing mid-range Shaman, so I kind of can see him bringing it here into the team league, but it is tricky.
That would be
and
really interesting. Have we seen a mid-range Shaman played yet?
I think Silent Storm did it I'm pretty sure Silent Storm did it already once. I think it was week 1 that he played mid-range Shaman, because we played
You're right.
we played Team Celestial week 2, and we were considering them bringing mid-range Shaman because he played it in week 1.
Yeah, Sunstorm was doing very well for Team Celestial in the first 2 weeks. I think he just went undefeated for the first 2 weeks. He brought a Shaman the first week, which, if I recall, was pretty well teched against aggro. It had like the zombie chows and whatnot, which some people sometimes decide to cut to slow it down. Like they'll put a 1 of instead of bringing 2, and they won't put in Defensive Argus. So if I recall, I think that was the deck list that he was playing in the first week. All right, well, getting to the next game, Gara playing Paladin versus Tiddler's Mage. We'll finally get to see if it's tempo or freeze.
It's a cool matchup. I mean, I really want to see what Gara is playing for a Paladin. I'm also excited by that. What if they are bringing the Tempo Mage Team Celestial? So it's gonna be good.
Yeah, like there's some plays that really make the Tempo Mage versus Paladin a little clunky at
But
times.
the Flame Waker is really good. Just to get the hero power from the Paladin, the Master of Battle.
Yeah, just to counter it really quickly, I think getting the coin as a Tempo Mage is one of those things where, you know, it matters a lot for Rogue. It's the most accepted, best deck to get the coin in, or the best class. And then you get Tempo Mage, which also can get huge swing turns with their coin plays with the Flame Waker.
Sure enough, we're going to see also if it is mid-range Paladin, whether or not Gara is ready for the early game version. Given that Eloise teched in Explosive Sheep, Gara might also bring a more anti-aggro Paladin, so I would be seeing like 2 Zombie Chow maybe, and then the usual mid-range lineup, which would be really good against Tempo Mage in my experience, but that's a lot of speculation.
Could you ever get the like the Harrison Jones tech in Tempo Mage? I mean, it's a tech that's been played quite frequently. I mean, that could also make the matchup a bit more bearable as a Tempo Mage player. It's a marginal thing, but you know, those things can matter. You're denying the opponent a 2-for-1 maybe with his True Silver, and you're getting an extra card, which is Tempo Mage, can be really important. I mean, when you run out of cards as Tempo, you're pretty much out of it.
This is a strange observation that I just made, but I think the character portraits are different.
What do you mean?
Like, Tiddler looks different.
From the portals from last
previous
week's, or?
Yeah, just something I noticed. That's
Okay,
a much more offensive picture of Tiddler, I think.
I didn't notice yet, but
I didn't notice at all. I guess I just didn't pay enough attention. Oh my god, Trump. Your attention to detail.
Hey, I like
Top
these
tier,
things.
10,
Like,
10.
these portraits are really cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look into it. Maybe you're right.
I want to see the mage from Tiddler. Like, it can also be a freeze mage. I know that Tiddler is, or at least plays sometimes freeze mage. I don't know if he really likes the deck or if he is also if he likes Tempo Mage still more. And you see everyone is, or you see a lot of teams are bringing Freeze Mage. So maybe Team Celestial went to the same conclusion and is also gonna be playing the Freeze Mage. And also Gara with the Paladin, like he went to DreamHack Valencia, and a lot of people were playing aggro Paladin there, and it went really good there at DreamHack Valencia. So the finals were two people that played aggro Paladin. So maybe Gara came to the same conclusion and is gonna bring aggro Paladin here. I won't be surprised.
That would be very nice. It's one of those decks that used to exist and never quite made it to the top of the, the competitive metagame and tournament play. But of recent memory, it's been cropping up more and more because it's actually competing with other decks. And I think the new tools they got from GVG, not that they're very new anymore, but the tools they got from GVG really pushed it even further, like up the power curve.
Yeah, it is really cool how the top 6 decks, minus Rogue, all have a alternate version. Paladin not considered one of the top 6, I guess, but Mage, Warrior, Druid, even almost all of the decks right now have 2 versions at least that you can bring, and it's always hard to guess which one it is.
Yeah, so we're basing our matchups based on classes, but I think we're at the point where this is almost like the more expansions come out, the less and less the class itself is going to be impactful in the way you have to approach your your own lineup, and the more you're gonna have to consider archetypes. It's already very true. Warlock is probably the perfect example of that, where you have a single class that has 4 workable archetypes at any point. I mean, that's a lot to play around with.
Right, and if this new expansion, the Grand Tournament, does it right, we're going to see almost all the classes get another control variant also, just because of the Inspire mechanic. So we're going to see every deck have 3 different varieties. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's
boy.
going to be excessively hard, and it's looking like you were right. The aggro Pally from Gara, I think, is going to be coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Defender of Argus. It's not.
Yeah, what is that? Gar
It's
brewing
a-
his own decks again. What's up with this, Gar? You gotta stop this. I can't make predictions anymore.
I'm still thinking it is an aggro kind of Paladin. There are some versions that are playing one Quadamaster or one Defender of August, because it stacks really well with the dudes you play at turn 3 sometimes. So. Oh, and it is a Mech Mage.
Whoa.
Oh my god, what's going on here? I don't even know anymore. Somebody help.
But do you expect it? From Gara's side, you just see a Mad Scientist. Yeah, Mad Scientist. Every mage deck is playing with Mad Scientist. So, do you already see that this is the Mech Mage from this point?
I don't think so, but I mean, double Snow Chugger with the possibility of Blast Mage, that is just very dangerous.
Oh boy,
Oh,
the Mech
man.
Barber too.
That's going to be
Gonna use
insane.
Frostbolt. This is a good start from the Mage side. Next turn we've got Mech Warper, Snow Chugger, and if everything goes right, you could Snow Chugger, Tink Master.
It's funny that Gara Gara has no really option. It's just Leopardome Hero Power, but there was still it was still really hard to say what that was for a trap. What Gara is facing for kind of mage there.
Yeah, that's a really unfortunate turn 3 from an aggro Paladin, and it goes to show why most aggro Paladins don't put Defender of Argus into their deck. That's another clunky card, which might ruin their aggro draw.
Yeah, I mean, as good as the aggro Pally is at getting Divine Shielded minions, whereby they can very often get good value out of it because they can, force the opponent to use multiple resources on it. And in that case, I guess Defender of Argus seems to make sense in that line of logic, where you're increasing the resilience of your minions. At the same time, it's also making it so those clunky hands are just worse. The times where you don't get the Divine Shields.
It's so tough for the aggro Paladin to get all these 4 drops, the True Silver, the Consecration, and the not often seen Defender of Argus.
And what do you do with this True Silver? If you attack in the Snow Chugger, you can't use it next turn, so it feels really bad to use the True Silver here maybe, and you know that you can't attack with it.
Yeah, and in this case, it's going to be worse.
Wasn't expecting Snow Chugger Technician to actually work on turn 4, but Tiddler's done it. That's a lot of pressure.
Is that a new card? The Snow Checker Technician? So do you silence off that Chugger?
Ah,
I know, I feel exactly the same, guys. If I'm in that position, but I'm just trying to figure out how do you get out of this mess?
yeah.
All right, your choices here are to play either a 2/3 to kill one thing with consecration, or to play a 2/1. So feels bad, man.
All the feels.
And do you make that hero, the 1/1 dude with it, or do you just define favor for one extra draw to hope you draw into an equality what some of these versions are playing?
I
I
have to
could
imagine
see
you want to
that.
use Divine Favor earlier rather than later since your opponent is so aggressive, and there's one spare part, so the hand is just getting smaller. Yeah, I think Owl Divine Favor is the play, but it's so hard to... You cry while making it.
Yeah. And sometimes you just gotta toughen up and make the potentially winning play. So if Gar picks up an equality, that's going to be pretty good for him. But unfortunately, not quite what he was looking for. Although Defensive Argus gets a bit better. Oh my goodness. Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, at this moment it just feels really sad. And if you go into an aggro against aggro matchup, it's just the one that gets the board first is normally gonna be ahead the whole game.
And that's pretty much what we can see here. I mean, equality would be a saving grace for Gara. I think he would be able to turn the game around in, like, if he had that. Because, you know, Tiddler's next turn would consist of a spider tank in this specific case and very little else.
Yeah.
So all those 1/1s are going to have to carry.
And Gara knows also already that if there is a 5-0 in the hand, he's already dead, but he can't do anything about it.
Now, when you look at this board, you also kind of make the wonder of how are you going to get Inspire to work in the next expansion, because there is this kind of board control just spirals out of the way. Like, can you actually afford to play a card and then use a hero ability? So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of more control tools next expansion is going to have.
Yeah, I've got the feeling initially, you know, Inspire is an amazingly flavorful mechanic, right? But I mean, balance-wise, or you know, based on the way the Hearthstone plays, how does it fit in the whole picture? So that's a bit more difficult maybe to implement. Oh wow.
I hope it's gonna be something that it will be really good. And most of the Inspire effects that we get now, they look a bit slow or really hard to pull off. But if there are some cards that stack really well with it, it might be a big thing.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So right now, Gara, does he have a board-wide potential? So 1, 1, 2. He could, but he's going to be taking some damage at the very least. If he uses his weapon instead of using Defender. Because if you use Consecration, you risk running into Counterspell. I guess it's kind of risky, but...
I think you expect an entity here, yeah. You can trade everything on board, not taking any damage.
So Consecration is going to free him from that. But what a board he's got.
You know that you're dead in 6 turns.
Oh, wow. Oh. Wait, have I missed something about Mech Mage?
Seems like Celestial had the exact same thought that we had. We actually ran Mech Mage with Fel Reaver also, and we had to all submit decks like way before, so it's not like they saw our game and then used Fel Reaver also, but we both came to the same conclusion. That's pretty cool, seeing the Mech Mage now use Fel Reaver also.
So the conclusion is, if it's good in Mech Shaman, why is it not good in Mech Mage?
Exactly, actually.
Right, I like that. That's a good train of thought. I think it's super sensible. Can't believe we haven't seen that earlier in the development of the decks.
I guess at some point it's because Beat Game Hunter has fallen off, which is a little bit of a surprise, but the top decks right now, there aren't a lot of BJH targets. Like mid-range Hunter doesn't run Dr. Boom a lot of the time, and Patron Warrior doesn't run any BJH targets. So your BJH gets a lot worse, so therefore BJH disappears, so you start putting in Fel Reavers.
Yeah. Soon enough, we're gonna be seeing Anima Golem. So there's no healing in that Paladin deck outside of True Summer Champion, right? And even if there were, I guess, if the Archmage lives, you're still gonna be able to get infinite fireballs.
You need more than a heal here. You also need to kill off the Antonidas, and Gara
Yeah.
sees it already coming, and it's like, yeah, I can do both.
Yeah, it's one or the other. I can't really deal with the Fel Reaver and the Archmage. So Celestial Steam is going to be going up 4-1, I believe, over Tempo Storm. And Tiddler's out. I mean, he's done with his day. So well done by him, locking up the Mech Mage and the Warrior.
So there are only Tiddler is out of the series, and there are only 2 decks left, and I think it is the Shaman from Silent Storm and the Warlock from Frozen Ice.
Right. Frozen Ice
Yeah.
has been playing very aggressive approach, like has been taking a very aggressive approach to fighting in this team league. We'll see if he brings something a bit slower this time. I mean, Warlock has plenty of archetypes to choose from.
Shaman too.
Do they? They've got about
Well, if it's
2,
Silent
I
Storm.
guess. Yeah, I guess if it's Silent Storm, it's fine. It's kind of like Hawkeye, who could be playing any type of Shaman, although he does favor, mid-range, and so has Silent Storm in the past. They could be playing either of those, so...
I think
I don't
the
know.
theme for today's Celestial lineup is decks that you weren't expecting Celestial to bring. So, Hemlock and mid-range Shaman, sure.
Murloc shot. You want to talk about unexpected, you go Murloc. And then you've got the surprise factor seal. I can't guarantee a win, but I can guarantee the surprise.
Murlocs can still be really strong. I think I lost yesterday on the ladder on stream with it. I was just dead at turn 4 after the Druid went for an insane Murloc turn. You might see it in some decks.
Yep. And one day there will be a Murloc metagame, and then Trump can tech in the Hungry Crab again, and then just go full surprise on
I
everyone.
wait the day. For Hungry
The
Crabs
good old
once
days.
again. Hey, there's gonna be a Murloc in the next expansion, probably, according to the art, at least.
Yeah.
I can tell you already what it's going to do. It's going to be Inspire, summon a 1/1 Murloc Scout, and then maybe people will try to play Murloc again.
Makes
It'll be
sense.
fun. Yeah.
It will be cool. Like mechs are already really popular, and some love to pirates, some love to Murlocs. It will be cool.
Yeah. But I ask you the one question. Where are the Treants? What happened to them? There's like Soul of the Forest and Cenarius and Force of Nature, which really doesn't count because they're dead as soon as they come on the board. So, where are the Treants? Are we getting any ever?
Did you see the art? There's probably gonna be a Treant.
Oh my god, okay. If Volcanic Lumberer wasn't even labeled a Treant, was he? If I'm not mistaken. It's like
Nope.
we might get a tree, but maybe not a Treant. I'm tired of trees.
I think that card is a little too big to be a Treant.
Yeah. I guess they'd have to be... Is there another name we could name those and still label them Treants? I don't know. I feel like we should be working on a Treant archetype for Druid. Oh man. Temple Storm is really down score-wise. I mean, even if they get perfect Qs, now Gar has given away the fact that he's playing Aggro Pally. That's good against Mech Shaman. So that could be a good lineup. Potentially.
We're gonna see Eloise up for the quote-unquote third time with her mage.
Explosive Sheep against Shaman is a pretty good card, I hear. It's not too bad.
If this is Mech Shaman, it could crush mage in time. We'll see.
I think it will never be bad just because of the hero power of the Shaman, where it makes the totems, and you can always kill the totems also with it. We will see. I'm really surprised, or I really want to see what Silent Storm is gonna do with the Shaman. If he's really gonna bring that mid-range Shaman, I will not be surprised, but I will really want to see it.
I mean, mid-range Shaman is kind of a dying breed nowadays in Hearthstone. It's one of those decks that just comes back in once in a while, piloted by great players, and then you think, wow, this is good, I can do this. Then you pick it up, and it doesn't seem to be nearly as consistent as they get it to work. So,
But I see a lot of mechs in this deck, so I think this is just a mech Shaman. And it's
think that's
pretty
a pretty
good
good
also
guess.
against Mage. If there is also an Ragnaros and maybe a Boom, and the Fel Reavers are sometimes hard to deal with.
yeah. What were you going to say, Trump?
I think Mech Shaman's a pretty good guess, is what I said.
No, I refuse. I don't think that Make Warper is a giveaway. It's just a good 2-3 for 2, man. Don't overread into this. All right, well, Cogmaster.
Well, that's a good start for the Mech Shaman. 2 bad cards, but 2 really good cards.
I can fix anything.
And a reasonable start for the Freeze Mage as well, getting to start with the Scientist.
It's always important to have that Mad Scientist. It's with the Loot Hoarder, maybe the only 2-drop. You can play the Doomsayer, but it feels a bit early already for a Doomsayer, and it's so important to have something early on the board instead of using your hero power.
Yeah, it's well, that's a pretty sweet card, however. Like getting rid. Oh, this is a bit tricky though.
Yeah, Sunstorm's actually got a pretty tricky turn. There's something like 4 possible plays here.
Yeah, all of which don't feel like they're optimal. I mean, the obvious one is like Coin Power Maze, deal with it, but then you're giving them the secret. And you kind of want to keep the Earth Shock for Doomsayers, is my guess. So there's a good chance he just keeps that for later use.
Yeah, it's pretty early already for an Earth Shock with this board presence.
I think Doomsayer is going to be a bigger issue. Is he going phase? Oh my god,
wow.
he is.
Wow.
Didn't expect that.
Well,
But
see, that's
now
one of the
you leave-
possibilities we didn't
He leaves
consider.
the trade up on board. But I think he is planning on Earth Shocking turn 3 with the Mech Warper, getting the buff on the Mech Warper and just Earth Shocking the Mad Scientist. When
But
it
then-
leaves up for a 2-1.
Doomsayer is an issue then.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is, so... I will not trade too, but that is, I think, the way of thinking how Silent Storm
Yeah,
is going.
he's definitely thinking that way. I think that the line of thinking is exactly that one, where he gets a turn 3 Mech Warper to become a 5-4, 4-5, which makes it a bit tricky to handle. Oh, that should be enough, right? The Crackle with the Doomsayer play eventually. You can probably mix in some damage here and there.
Yeah, what an aggressive line.
Very aggressive, but if it pays off, I guess you almost always win.
Yeah, but it feels a bit early because there are not many minions in the hand to play it that aggressively.
Yeah. The top deck
Luis
Fireball
Santos
is getting
very
thrown
happy
out.
with that.
Yeah, always show the top deck one.
Yeah. Make Silent Storm wish he hadn't gone for that aggressive play. And no, that's a tricky turn. That's kind of the reason why Shaman sometimes feels inconsistent.
Yeah, you've run out of stuff. You give turn 5 and 6, but it's very rigid and linear.
Oh wow, what a crazy card for Eloise.
So is that a turn where you Doomsayer or just Frostbolding?
That'd be interesting. You Doomsay because you could say Doomsay because you want to deny their 5-drop. Fel Reaver is played in every one of them, and
Yeah.
possibly something else. You know
I
that
like it, yeah.
you know that Silent Storm had a weak turn 4 because he played Totem and Totem, so that makes his hand either Fel Reaver Fire Elemental type or just all spells. So makes the call to Doomsayer. That's a good call here.
And
Yeah.
it's even better to put the Doomsayer on here to because you have the Emperor in hand to play your turn 6 Emperor to put Shaman even in a more defensive spot.
You're going to get the initiative on turn 6 with one of the rare. This is one of the rare cases where the Freeze Mage can actually get ahead on board. So understandable. I think he was hesitating. You know, if it had been a spell damage totem, he would have gone for the Crackle with a 75% success
Oh
rate.
wow.
But
Yeah. There's the Emperor.
what a tricky card to handle, a Silent Storm. Nothing he does here is going to really do what he wants.
But it is a bit too early to leave it up. At 29 lives from the Mage still, I think he just has to hope he's gonna Crackle right here.
Yeah, you totem up an Oyotron and Crackle, because that's the only play. If you start with Crackle, then you have to take that line of play. There's nothing else opened up. So Fire Elemental could be the alternative.
Alright, a tough climb for Silent Storm ahead. We could actually see Silent Storm fatigue with this stuff against Freeze Mage, so that's going to be interesting. especially with all the discounts from Emperor.
Yeah, with all the cheap cards, I guess there's a good chance that Sunstorm is gonna get milled by playing the Fel Reaver.
Perhaps.
I really like the Telnos Frostbolt thing here, just because it trades so well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree
you don't
with that.
have to waste the Fireball. That's right.
Well, Frostbolt might be better into Fel Reavers, but to just freeze them.
And mill them more. You
Yeah.
buy time to just keep milling. You know what? That's good.
And it's just like cheaper, maybe you can get better use of it.
Yeah. Although at this point they're kind of all the same cost. Almost.
Well, Lava Burst is a pretty good answer here, right?
I think at this point, the mage has so few cards and there's already 2 discounts. It's like, oh, whatever, just leave it up. I think I would have gone a Noitron Fel Reaver there.
But the value that Eloise got from the Emperor is not good on the cards. Like getting a Frostbolt and a Healbot cheaper, it's not what you were looking for. She really needs this card draw now from the Telnos to start off.
Well, I mean, you can still stall quite a bit with Blizzard and Sheep. Like, you don't have to Sheep here. It would almost be reckless, I think, to just Sheep these 2 minions. They do really nothing, so you have to wait a bit.
You're just gonna ignore this board. I would like to see here the card draw from the Telnos first, and maybe you just put on the Healbot because it does half of the work what it normally does, and it contests the boards pretty well. It's a pretty set hand with no card draw, no Acolytes or Arcane Intellects or Loot Hoarders again. And that is what the Sheep is probably a tech card from the Loot Hoarder, but in both ways the Loot Hoarder will do a lot of work too.
Yeah, it's an interesting game because the Mech Shaman is in a bad spot since the Freeze Mage has so much health, and the Freeze Mage is in a bad spot because the hand is really bad.
So who's truly in a bad spot?
Gonna depend a lot on upcoming draws.
And I don't...
Freeze Mage looking for any of her card draw, and Mech Shaman just gonna carry out the Fel Reaver plan.
It's gonna be pretty YOLO with the double Fel Reavers. There's no way you can just not go YOLO with this hand.
Yeah, there's a huge like reward potential behind that play, so
Arcane Intellect, pretty nice
Yeah.
pickup here.
yeah, that's going to be really solid. So how often do you just Frostbolt the Fel Reaver instead of Blizzarding?
Oh,
Oh,
this
Lothar is gone.
is pretty big. Well, you're still at 29 lives, so taking 1 time 8 damage is not that bad at all.
So you can mill him even more.
Yeah. I don't know how many cards there are left, but
And Eloise is drawing some pretty good
13
late game
cards.
cards.
Yeah, definitely worth it to Frostbolt, since there are only 13 cards. You can get rid of the entire deck next turn.
Wow, that's a lot of milling. I don't think you can actually play... If you play Fel Reaver, you're getting into the range where you get fatigued, like pretty much guaranteed next turn.
Well, here's
If
the
you
thing. I
don't
think
play
you're
it, how do you
guaranteed-
win?
You're guaranteed to fatigue already, so might as well play the Fel Reaver anyways.
Yeah, there's no way not to play it, because otherwise your win condition is just gone. You have no way to really deal that damage and push through. But there's a Blizzard in Eloise's hands, so Soundstorm's gonna have a bit of a rough day.
yeah.
There is a world where Eloise doesn't manage to draw into something to follow up the Blizzard, and then Silent Storm will just attack 2 times. And that might work out.
Yeah, this is the hand that Silent Storm has to do it with. Like, these Crackle and the Lava Burst. That's all he's gonna get, I guess. I think all the cards that are left now in the deck will be just gone. Drawing a Frostbolt, another freeze effect.
Yeah, rest in peace, deck. There's no way Soundstorm is drawing a single
Wow.
thing.
And they stack together, like if there are 2 Fel Reavers, it's just in discard of 6 cards.
Yeah. I'm out of cards.
Uh,
I'm sorry, Thrall. At least he's not dying to fatigue, because the Fel Reaper will stop drawing from your deck as soon as it's empty. Initially, we thought, before testing it, that maybe it would just keep milling you through fatigue, but that's not the case. So, that's one upside, I guess. Yeah, there's...
Missed the attack with the heal bot, but it's not gonna matter. Maybe it's
Indecisive.
sound totem.
Looks like she was planning to set up so that the explosive sheep would kill off as many Fel Reaver as possible.
Yeah, that's what I think she was trying to
I think
set up.
it's a bit too late to play for a control game now, but it's...
I mean, she's going to get an ice barrier if the mad scientist dies. There was one played already? I forget.
There was already one played, yeah.
Okay, so the second one in hand is guaranteed to be the last one. All right, so mad scientist is just going to be a waste.
It's just a
It dies.
2-2.
Yeah.
Good news for Sunstorm that you got the taunt totem, but I mean that is the best totem you could have gotten, or maybe healing totem too. But I don't think Eloise can deal with this current board.
Yeah. Are we going through the motions? No.
Yeah,
Oh.
because it's always possible for the mage hand to look something like Forsen's hand. Though
You just
Forsen's
have the
hand would
worst.
be really good here. So
Yeah, that will be
maybe,
really
like,
good.
the worst hand.
Like double flame strike and then double frost nova. Oh man. Just taking it slowly here. No reason to rush into anything. I mean, Eloise can't be worried about anything really from Soundstorm's hand. And Soundstorm's gonna call it a day for now, so he's going to give Temple Storm the second win. That's not a bad one.
So interesting also now to know, now Tempo Storm knows that there is the Mech Shaman from Silent Storm. It was maybe a bit more likely that it will be the Mech Shaman, but he was also known for bringing mid-range Shaman, so it's important information also for Tempo Storm.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to change anything about the way they're going to queue their classes? Because do they have a class that's specifically, strong against Mech Shaman? Because I know Mech Shaman has a fairly, weird matchup against Aggro Pally, for instance. So Gara could queue that into the lineup from Celestial. I think that's going to be one of the better matchups probably for Gara. If he's going to pick up something.
It might also just really matter in the mulligan already. For like a rogue, you keep all the early removal you can get, and against a mid-range shaman, you might sometimes keep an Shredder or an Ezra Drake to get also some minions off, and now you might look just more for removal.
Yeah.
It's at this point where you actually regret bringing face Paladin over mid-range Paladin, because I know Gar's played mid-range Paladin, and the mid-range Paladin is so much better against Zoo and against Mech Shaman than the face one. It's possible that Paladin ends up being the face Paladin ends up being the deck that sinks them, given that Celestial's remaining decks are Zoo and Mech Shaman.
But I think Aggro Pally is pretty good against Mech Shaman, unless I'm mistaken, because they don't run the Lightning Storm. So I think it's probably one of the few matchups in which I'm happy to play Aggro Pally, by a smaller margin, I guess, than if I were running against a Warlock. So I mean, I'm not sure. Zoo would be bad, like absolutely bad. Handlock would be okay, as Aggro Pally, I guess.
No, Handlock is the dream.
Yeah. So I think Gara might be able to pilot that Aggro Pally deck to victory against one of the two decks. But like, how does it do against Malilock, for instance? Dragon Warlock. I'm not sure.
I think it will be really hard. There is a lot of heal in the deck. The deck is not like Handlock that you draw a lot. So I think it is. I think it's the hardest matchup if you look at Warlock decks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Face Paladin tends to be good against all types of Warlocks, though. Wait, did I say that right? Face Paladin
Yeah.
tends to be bad against all types of Warlocks. Wait,
Alright.
hold on.
No, it's good against Handlock.
It's varied.
So
I was
it's both
confused
good
by
and
the way that
bad.
you said that it was the best against that specific one.
That specific one. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. So it's going to be the Warlock mirror match. All right. I'm loving those when I don't know what they bring, because basically it's all speculation. Like there's no way for us to really know what they brought specifically.
And also for Eloise, because I think the first week or first 2 weeks it was Handlock or Demon Lock, and now she was switching to Handlock, so she can bring everything.
Well, it's looking like there's a Zoo deck with an
It looks like Zoo, not even
Zoo at
Demon
the
Lock.
bottom. Yeah.
If there is a Direwolf Alpine, Ooze, it looks really aggressive at least.
Yeah,
And
the
this
ooze
is
add up a nod to all of the strong decks of weapons right now. So
Yeah,
much
and that
so that even Zoo's running weapon destruction.
and I think this is this is Eloise's perspective. So it might be just on Zoo, Demon Zoo, Mirror.
If it's a Zoo mirror match, it'll come down to like who gets the earlier curve. And sometimes I think like if they were both played perfectly, a lot of the time also the juggles like they really matter where the knives go. Implosion's also a pretty big deal.
There are some swing cards like Void Walker or for the Void Caller and Implosions that can really get it off. But normally the one that with the more aggressive starts is really strong.
I'm surprised at the Voidwalker mulligan because looks like Voidwalker coined Voidwalker into Direwolf Alpha would have been pretty good. But Eloise picks up an even better card.
Yeah, Flame Imp on a starting hand seems like a pretty good card.
This is the dream.
Yep.
You not only start off against a Zoo who doesn't play anything on turn 1, but you also get the flexibility of the Flame Imp and the Voidwalker. So you're ready for anything.
Like a
This
Flame
is
Imp was
not
pretty
bad.
bad here. Just only the Flame Imp, it will trade perfectly for a Frozen Ice with the Abusive Sergeant on the egg. Oh!
Oh
That's
wow. That's brutal. That is just brutal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's gonna take everything for Frozen Ice to climb out of this situation already.
Let's pray for the Hellfire Zoo variant. Well, it's not quite over yet. There's a chance that Frozen Ice can pick up. You know, as we said, a mid-game swing card like Implosion could do wonders. It's not
This
quite
is
over.
This is the agony of Zoo versus Zoo when the opposing Zoo gets a really, really good start. Like, not only do you pass turn 1 and they play 2 turn 1 cards, but your turn 2 play got completely countered.
Yeah, it's looking
Yeah, now
pretty
you're-
lopsided. Go ahead.
And now you're just looking with, yeah, let's play the Void Walker, and the Flame Imp just trades way too perfectly into it.
Yeah, one of those agonizing things like, I can't even play the Abusive Sergeant because there's a Voidwalker in the way, so I have to power overwhelming it.
So, do you ever preemptively remove that egg and the Nerubian that comes from it?
I think that's a good question. You can expect your opponent to have something because it was turn 2 egg, and I think an egg might have been kept. Hard to say really since the screen wasn't showing. But if the egg was kept and you paid attention to it, then you can expect your opponent to have something to have buffed the egg.
But this is really gonna be a big deal in the Void Walker. Then there has to be a power overwhelming, and if there was only the empty Flame Imp, I would say you probably trade, because then it is in range of the Abusive Sergeant, and then it makes the trades way worse for you.
You're right in
You're
saying
right.
that it's a lot easier not to trade here because you have the Voidwalker, but if you didn't, then it would be a very strong consideration to like kill it with the Owl and then Direwolf Alpha with the Flame Imp.
Alright, so again, a pretty late card for Frozen Ice. That's not really helping the situation immediately, and it might not be the case. Like, it might be the case that turn 7, I wouldn't say it doesn't happen, because it probably will, but it might be too late to really try to stabilize with Dr. Boom. So we'll see what he ends up pulling off here.
Really, nothing is good
Yeah.
here. It's a really weird Zero Mirror, where the one is just way ahead of the other.
You need a comeback card like Hellfire. Can you imagine the Hellfire
Yeah,
right now?
that'd be crazy. It's one of
Boom.
those cards that you used to see play in Zoo, right? Back in Naxxramas. Like, some people rent it, but it hasn't seen play since. I think GVG, like post GVG and post BRM, the deck was refined to the point where Hellfire's just been cut out completely.
I'm not sure if it's refined or rather a change in the meta, because for a time being, there was a lot of Zoo out there. And in that case, you can actually have Hellfire as a counter Zoo tech.
Yeah.
It's kind of a consequence that there's less Zoo that you don't run Hellfire.
It would be good against patrons as well, I guess-ish. But that's not, your goal is not to really have to deal with the patron board. You want to kind of be done with it by the point it happens.
There are a lot of times that it also works against you, I think. So that's
Yeah.
why people are not really considering or not playing it much at all.
Good point. That's a good point. So now it's Eloise's turn to pick up the initiative. I think the direwolf, like the knives, could end up being a big deal, but either way, the board can just be cleared for sure, no matter what. And then Frozen Ice is gonna have to try to climb back in.
Right,
If
it's
you
just a
start
decision
trading
of
here,
the decision of how to most optimally do it, and I would think it would be Direwolf Alpha. See if the knife hits the Nerubian, and then you use the Owl. This is using the mana a little bit less efficiently, and if the knife hits, you trade a little less efficiently.
It's a marginal difference in the way the tournament was played, but yeah, I see. I think seeing where the knives go is probably the first step. Well, Frozen Ice with a really top-heavy or situational hand. I guess Doomguard is the only thing you could remotely even think of doing here. There's like nothing else that stands out.
Yep, also painful to send it against the 3-1, but you do what you gotta do.
how many times do you do it in this? That you just with still a lot of cards in hand that you just play that Doomguard just because you have to. Pretty sad.
Yeah.
And also,
Oh,
Wow, that is not good for Frozen Ice. Exactly 5 mana, just enough to get the defender on the board, pump up 2 more damage, and buff up the minions so they're pretty much unkillable.
not that he was already really at, or not that Eloise
You're
was
right.
already really at.
Right. And wow, Frozen Ice with the worst zoo hand I think I've ever seen. Oh wow.
My
It's just
God,
getting worse. What is this? Well, Frozen Ice losing the game to Eloise. So Eloise, I think, is done now with the Mage and the Warlock being locked.
She did her job.
Yeah, so... yeah, I mean, how does it feel when you're the last one to have to... I know Radu was put in that position a few times, where he was the last player, and he had to kind of carry the torch and hope to get that last win. Yeah, it must be a lot of pressure, I think.
Yeah, it's like you don't in the other tournaments you don't want to lose for yourself, but in this team tournament you feel a bit more pressure maybe because you also don't want to lose for your team. I think it feels even worse to lose for your team than lose for yourself.
Yeah, well, it seems to make sense, right? It kind of follows that you're losing other players' chance at winning. So,
But
obviously,
you
it's
still
gonna
know
lose.
you still know it's a team league and it can happen to everyone. So I think every team takes it pretty positively.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at this point, we've noticed that it's not like one player who systematically has the same treatment. It's every player's turn comes eventually. So I think at this point we're just waiting on Kibler, right? Like, I think Kibler is the only guy who needs who needs to get taught a lesson of how to lose a game. I don't know. At this point, it's looking so insane. 8-0.
it's possible that Kibler just figured it out, and we'll go, what, 14-0 on Kibler?
Yeah, and then he'll win the $5,000 if I'm not mistaken. You know, premium that goes to the player who performed the best in the entire league. So that's a pretty good thing for him if he gets there. Now, this is, we're going down to the last few decks from 4-1 to 4-3. So Temple Storm's on the climb back up. The Grim Patron Warrior, tentatively from Hyped, and the Rogue, 2 classes that he's very proficient with, against the Zoo from Frozen Ice and the Mech Shaman. Do you have any maybe insight on which of these is likely to take it? Like, what is the weakest link of Celestial Steam here between both?
At this point, you have a bit of really just a guessing game. So the Warrior is strong against the Zoo, and it's okay against the Shaman. The Paladin, on the other hand, is weak against the Zoo, but it's okay against the Shaman. And the Rogue is generally okay against both.
So it might come down to unlucky draws, I guess, coming from... because the Temple Storm's lineup doesn't seem like it's that bad. Just that Mech Shaman needs to land a win. Huh.
Yeah, and Zoo needs to get ahead. Game Patron is really good against the Zoo, but if the Zoo just sometimes snowballs, and you saw this a really aggressive Zoo with Direwolf and even an Ooze, so that might matter.
Right, I think
That's
it's
on
all
Eloise's
about...
side, though.
Oh, that was
Frozen
Eloise's
Ice
side, okay.
has the more traditional one.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see Hyped against Soundstorm playing Warrior versus Mech Shaman. So
Oh,
again,
that's not one they wanted.
yeah, definitely not. Mech Shaman has a pretty good matchup in this case. We'll see how things develop, though. I mean, sometimes you don't get a start. The Warrior has the Axe, he's got the Armor Smith, he's got everything. So
It's a little surprising because sometimes you equate Mech Shaman to like almost Phase Hunter to some extent, but it just turns out that it plays out quite a lot differently. Whereas Patron Warrior is really good against Phase Hunter, it's just not as good as in Mech Shaman because the numbers are different and the way that Shaman kills you is different.
they can sometimes also get a war of attrition. They're always gonna have something on the board, and then that makes it so it's a little bit more awkward for you. Like going through Stoneclaw Totem as a Warrior player can be excruciating. And if they're curving behind Anoyotrons, again, that's another great card against Warrior. That having to handle very early in the game, it's a huge problem. Oh, I mean, I wonder. I think Hype's got to be playing Patron, right? He's not going to be wearing Control Warrior here.
I think there was a week that he did it. 1 week or 2 weeks ago, I'm pretty sure he did. And he played a ridiculous game against Zalay, whereas Zalay played Patron Warrior, and Zalay missed like I think 3 damage, and that was at the end it costed Zalay the game against
Right.
Hyped's Control Warrior because he had like shield block into a brawler or something like that.
I remember that. Actually, I remember that. I was casting that game. You're right. Hype did bring a Control Warrior once that I've seen, and Zalay didn't have enough time to get the extra 3 damage in.
When you're up against a team known for their aggressive lineup, though, like Celestial, well, actually, that's even more of a reason to play Control Warrior too, I guess. But it is going to be Patron Warrior here. Well, yes, it is. That's a Inner Rage.
And I mean, this is a good hand for Soundstorm.
That's a great hand.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. This hand is so
Players, yeah, both players have pretty decent hands. It's a bit that Hyped is missing a weapon.
Yeah, Sunstorm is playing the Does he have Fiery War Axe game, and Sunstorm's going to guess yes.
good. And the guess is going to force him to play the Anoyatron. It's not that bad. I mean, with okay, I was gonna say Cruel Taskmaster Inner Rage can handle like a Zap-O-Matic that's hidden between enemy lines, but now you've got the Whirlwind and the Ghoul together. That's even easier in many respects.
And it's really interesting how the Fear of Fiery War Axe twists opening so much because the
Cogmaster.
Yeah, the Cogmaster is such a stronger play, even without needing the coin. But just because you fear the Fiery War Axe, you have to play it this way. Well, depending on how your attitude against Fiery War Axe is. Some people just play the Cogmaster anyways. Some people are really ambitious and start off with Whirling Zap-O-Matic.
Yeah, I remember Soundstorm was facing off against a Shaman once, and he was so afraid of Cogmaster that he coined out a Wrath to kill it on turn 1, and then he got Zap-O-Matic, back to back, and then he lost. But it's like some people respect that Cogmaster a lot more than others. So I guess sometimes it can feel like a big threat to other players. Go ahead.
It's still important to always kill the mechs off there. Synergy with the mechs, with the weapons, with the mech warper that gets cheaper. That is like, a mech warper is pretty likely at turn 2 sometimes, so... I'm always more scared of the mech warper and the Zap-O-Matic than on the Cogmaster, even if it's a pretty big threat.
So far, this is a good game. Both players are following their game plan. Hyped gets to go into Deathbite into his choice of Patron or Acolyte of Pain the next turn. And Sunstorm's got a really good curve.
Yeah. What's good as
We'll
well
see,
is that he's got the Whirlwind as well on top, so...
Yeti is not a bad pickup at all here. It's the only minion that survives the attack of the Deathbite here.
Right.
From the
problem,
max,
though,
at least.
is the execute would hurt so much if he
Yeah,
had it.
that's true, that's true.
Oh man. Well, this survives. Like if it gets hit, you're dealing 6 damage to the enemy's phase. So I think you're
but the
still
bad
okay
news
with it.
is- The bad news is you played into something the opponent already has an answer for. So
Well, you're getting the 2 drop at least in this specific case. I wonder how much this will end up being good or bad. I mean, if that 2 drops is
he's-
Zapomatic.
Hyped might be thinking about doing Grim Patron.
So set up a board where he might be able to get himself more armor off the Armor Smith. But he doesn't have the Warsong Commander.
Maybe.
Those are good trading tools anyway.
No.
Yeah, a little too ambitious to do Grim Patron now. Probably Acolyte, Armor Smith. Looks like
Or neither.
He's thinking of slamming afterwards, maybe on the minion that pops out.
Well, let's
There's
hope
always
for
the
him
crew.
that works out.
keeps his options open. Turns out that this is really good for Whirlwind.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, I don't see how it's going to get any better.
I wonder if
what-
better might have been to do Acolyte of... No, because he was thinking of Slam Whirlwind also.
In case things went really wrong.
So you can play 3 mechs here if you want to.
Looks good. Phone's really low.
Zapomatic.
You just got to hit with one of the Zapomatics and you win.
Yeah, because
Almost.
Crackle always hits for 6. And then 7 goes Totem. So
there
double
is the
slam
double
could handle
slam.
it, right? Yeah, and the cruel task to kill
Yeah.
the mech warper. Okay, this is not nearly over. For
Totally
Hype.
not. It's
Absolutely
you
not.
can start off with the Cruel Taskmaster to get 2 draws from the Acolyte.
Choices.
Yeah, it's arguable that this is actually in the Patron Warrior's favor.
Yeah, and you know what? I wonder. There was a time where in the Undertaker meta you could play Cleave and Warrior just because. I wonder how often Cleave is gonna come back in the metagame. Because like the metagame will change eventually, to where maybe Patron is in the only thing you really want to play. Cleave would be amazing here.
Yeah, it is really cool to see how old cards can come back into the metagame when it shifts, especially with a new expansion. My Patron Warrior brought so many old cards back. I was so surprised to see Gnomish Inventor as an actual good card. Like, I kept trying to find a better card for that in Patron Warrior. I was like, what? 4 mana 2/4? Surely we
Yeah.
can find a better card than that.
Nope, you can't. That's the fun part. Like so many people argue day in day out about how to structure the Patron Warrior best, and it seems like at this point it seems stable, but there's still some slots that people like to pick over others. It's like it's down to each player's personal play style to make that deck work.
So you're a bit scared of taking any more damage now, maybe. There's the Armor Smith.
So many choices.
Right, I guess the most anti-damage to yourself would be Frothing and Armor Smith and Inner Rage, but you do need to get rid of the minions also. So he's possibly... Yeah, he's probably going to Despot and then hope to... Yeah, there we go. You can do the Inner Rage first, because you can always kill the next minion that comes out. Not always. Often.
Oh wow,
That's good.
this would be good next expansion.
I don't think Silent Storm was really happy with seeing it already now.
Well, I mean, he's got the spell damage, he's got the crackle. He really was looking for a lava burst or something along those lines. Couldn't pick it up, unfortunately.
This is where you decide your bravado. This is the best case that you're going to ever have for crackling the opponent's face. They're low, and you have a spell damage to them out. But you're up against a Frothing Berserker. So the question is, do you do the crackle to the face and do you totem and then you hope to top deck a win? Or do you think your chances are actually better by crackling the Berserker? And I think your chances are better if you crackle the face here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you here. I mean, if he's got the extra armor from an Armor Smith play and whatnot, then maybe it feels a little weird. But at the same time, you can't really play around it since you have to go all in. But he's gonna opt for the Mechanical Yeti and still try to maybe contest this board. There's a chance the Yeti gets attacked into, and as a result of that, the opponent takes 4 damage to the face. In which case, the top deck Lava Burst or Crackle number 2 would also work.
Right, this is the slower version of the aggressive play. You keep your options open. You probably still crackle the face.
Yeah. All
Pretty
roads
nice
lead to
pickup.
Rome.
No.
So you can either go with the Armor Smith, the Nomish Inventor, and battle rates your armor up depending how scared you are. But I really think there will be an attack with the Despite here and at least the Armor Smith coming out to either draw 3 cards or play a lot of armor. Well, with the Patrons you can stack a lot of armor too now.
I wonder if Hyped is scared enough to consider not attacking the Yeti with his weapon. Well,
And
he's not going to.
looks like
Okay.
you're right.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you have to figure that the Shaman's remaining cards are usually burned, and that's a really patient play to just sacrifice the 12 damage frothing in order to avoid only 4 damage to yourself.
Loads up.
Wow. So, I mean, the Armor Smith is really a big problem for Sandstorm.
Yeah, but he can't really get rid of it and
Yeah, there's really no way for him to do so. So he's forced in a position where he has to play it very slowly. You know, I really like this play here.
time
That's
remind me
really
the
nice.
flame totem. You give away that you have a flame totem, but it's a pretty good turn.
Yeah, at least it doesn't die, right?
Wow, that Lothab can actually hit in for 7. Or we do the 6 mana freeze.
You could freeze and just play the War Song Commander. I mean, it's not like there's a Lightning Storm lurking. And then you might start threatening. Well, you could also armor up on the back of it. I just feel like you can play it now and there's very unlikely going to be a drawback to it.
It looks
So
like
you
the
can threaten
choice is
whirlwinds.
between Commander Gnomish and then sending the 2/4 and the 3/3 in, or Commander freezing,
Yeah.
or even armor up freezing. That would be reasonable also.
I gotta move.
He's gonna go for the emergency cool, and for 6 mana, you would think that wouldn't see play, but
A bargain.
oh wow, the lava burst would have been so nice. But if the spell damage totem comes out, oh my
Oh, wait,
goodness!
Wow,
Is
how
that
much is
quote
this?
unquote lethal? No, it's not.
No, it's not threatening, but the Lothab would have actually allowed him to get it with a high roll. So that emergency coolant was actually pretty clutch. Although I guess like the turn from hype would have looked very different. What with the sacrifice of the Gnomish or buff of the Whirling Blades.
It's pretty funny that the game is still so like the game was
Whoa.
actually really close.
trade?
Whoa, that was such an insane crackle.
I think he's really hoping that the warrior has nothing left in the hand here. Well, it's not lively, but hoping for it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of card draw left in the hand of hyped.
I mean, that's a really, really thin hope from Sandstorm. I thought he was waiting for another crackle or something along those lines to just get a double burst to face and maybe get something done. But he was probably more afraid of a whirlwind and the patrons just replicating and then giving even more armor to hyped. Kind of
Yeah.
odd.
Right. When you look at it, SMORC aside, the problem with leaving that patron up isn't for the fact that like it'll do a lot of damage to you. It's because it'll gain more armor than you'll actually be able to crackle to the face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably the reason why he made the play. Well, hyped
It's
is
so
now
important
sitting
that-
comfortably on 19 health.
Yeah.
Fel Reaver could work. Oh my goodness! I was gonna say Fel Reaver would be a pretty okay card here, wouldn't it? And then there you go.
Another spell damage totem. He's rolling a lot of spell damage totems. Still
Yeah.
the charts
It
up.
doesn't have an answer yet.
Just you watch that execute off the top. Just you watch.
I've been through a lot of the card draw. Double battle rage used last turn.
That one's pretty nice too, with the King Patron still in the hand.
And the armor gain that goes with it. The lava burst gets milled, rock batter gets milled. Although very often Ragnaros gets milled. And Dr.
Boom.
Boom.
Fire, Elemental, all the big cards that Silent Storm was maybe looking for to still hope to win the game.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of armor that Hyped is gaining at the moment must feel like a mountain. The Silent Storm.
So much armor. Can we still believe that there was a moment in the game that Silent Storm was like 2-3 damage maybe off if the minion will not be killed? Like if there was one Sepomatic alive, he would have won, right?
Yeah.
Because
That is the strength of the Armor Smith, though, in Patron Warriors, that they have even more enablers for it than Control Warrior. You know, sometimes it's good in Control Warrior, but I think the armor gain effect is actually even more relevant when it comes to playing Patron.
Oh, we're going for the last-ditch effort to play Control Shaman now.
Oh, that's true. He's still, he's trying. Maybe he's trying to get information.
Not the best value from the Emperor, but it's still a 5-5 on the board. Pretty powerful. Oh, it's annoying.
It's basically extending the duration of the
Nothing
game.
more, and another spell damage totem.
You know, this could have been a lot better a lot earlier.
Oh, he can't even deal with it that well. The Emperor's gonna die, right?
Yeah, I was gonna trade.
Oh, wow. It's not over.
Living up
Like,
to
how
his
many
name.
cards does Hype have left? There are already 2 Patrons being played, 1 Frothing, the second Warswing, and there are only 3 cards left.
Whoa,
Like,
wow.
what,
How
like
many
there
does
is
Sunstorm
1.
have left? 4?
4,
Okay.
but yeah, then it's probably not gonna be enough.
The
But,
bad news is we saw a lot of the big cards milled. Dr. Boom, Fire Elemental.
yeah. But what, like Hype has 1 Frothing left, I think. Did we saw already 2 Frothings?
No, there's one more, I believe. You're right. So maybe there's a Fel Reaver top deck on Silent Storm's side, and he's able to, you know, pick it up. Although then Fire War Axe Execute handles it quite nicely, and
It's the
then
best
the
one
Shaman
here
has
is,
0 cards.
Fire Elemental. Did we see 2 of them milled?
There's 1 milled, and actually the second Fel Reaver was milled, so there's no chance of that.
And Boom and Wreck were gone too. Lotep is also already being played. Maybe there are still some low mech drops.
This is pretty amusing.
Wow.
So Fire Elemental has
Yeah,
to be
there's
it.
some low mech. Well, it's still pretty okay on the board here. I mean, if...
Does that change anything? Not quite.
No, but if there
Is
is not a
everything
minion
still
being drawn here, it's... He can't even kill off the Flame Totem. Oh, there's the minion. And it is the Frothing.
Blade be thirsty.
And Silent Storm is handed, like, just sticking in there. Doing his best, but... I think he knows how desperate this might have been from a long time ago.
Yeah. He was playing out with a small glimmer of hope, and that looked like it might have worked for a tiny bit. Like, when you get into the late game, you usually have something like a very, very small percentage chance to win, but it's worth pursuing.
Yeah, but playing the value game as a mech shaman against the Patron play is not something you really do a lot of times. It's fun to see.
You can see Hyped is really thinking this through. There's sweat on his face. Very difficult decision.
I gotta move.
Is he thinking? Maybe he's thinking already to attack face with the Frothing here.
What could go wrong?
surprises
The
me a
Blue
little
Gill
bit.
Warrior?
Yeah, maybe Hype also exactly knows what is left in the deck here. Oh, yeah, we see Silent Storm really had to mill cards like the Cogmaster and the Mech Warpers, and still having some Ragnaros or Dr. Boom left.
Yeah. I think the players are just playing to get information about each other's deck at this point. Just to get the entire list out of the way.
I don't think so. I think Hyped is really struggling to win.
Yeah,
Trying really hard.
every single turn is just a tiny bit too far away, but he finally gets it. And Temple Storm is equalizing with Team Celestial, so we're going to be going into the last 2 points for either team. Wow, that's an unexpected climb.
So 4-4, and yeah, they are still left with the. I don't think no, he's not benched because Frozen Ice played before here. So
Right.
still, they still have the option to either go with their Demon Zoo deck or going with the Max Shaman.
Yeah, and there's the Paladin still open on Temple Storm side.
Yeah, what the?
God.
The Rogue, it can't really get a bad matchup. There are two okay matchups. Su is probably a nice matchup, and the Max Shaman is okay. So do you want to go for just hope that you get the good matchup into the Zoo, or do you think, nah, maybe I can get the Paladin here now?
I think Paladin's okay, because ultimately you'll still be facing off against the Shaman. I think maybe queuing up Rogue first to try to get down to the Shaman from Silent Storm, because if Aggro Pally is your last deck, and you know you've got a decent matchup against Mech Shaman, maybe it's better to keep it for last and try to get a win with the Rogue on either of those first. But then it's really tricky if Silent Storm wins with the Shaman against the Rogue, and then the mid-range the Aggro Pally is stuck against Warlock. That's tricky.
It's really hard to. You can't really get into the like really bad matchups or not really good matchups. I think from the perspective of Team Temperstorm, you probably want Rogue into the Zoo. But do you want that already? And it's not even that good of a matchup. It's slightly favored, but without the coin, it can get pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a perspective of how you're thinking about the game, because you can either think of it as an optimist and be like, okay, I'm going to go Paladin, I'm going to not get the Zoo matchup, and then I'll get the Shaman, and that's like my best chance. Or you can be the pessimist of, I'm going if I go Paladin, I could go into Zoo, so I have to play a Rogue. Ends up being that Tempo Storm gets the bad side of it. Zoo versus Face Paladin. Pretty bad matchup for the Face Paladin.
Yeah, do you have much experience with it? Because I'm not really familiar how good Zoo is against this
It's
aggro.
very good. I found it to be very good. Unless the Paladin gets like a perfect Divine Shield start. That's what I've noticed so far.
Yeah, from my experience, the Zoolock is really favored. The more early game you have, the more favored you are. We know from Frozen Ice that he does have some late game cards like Mal'Ganis, and so that's a little bit in Gara's favor. But
Gara's
still
also got defensive Argus, right? So maybe that'll equalize the opponent's defenders. There's a chance.
That's true too. Gara has weakened his aggression a bit by adding in bigger cards like Defender of Argus. That's going to make it more in the Zoo's favor.
Yeah.
Because if you try to play a board control game against Zoo, you're going to lose. Most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that Gar really made his Paladin more of a Zoo Paladin, like in some ways, than a pure aggro one. Oh, wow, wait. Is this from the... Okay, this has to be from the Paladin perspective. There's no way this is from the Zoo perspective.
I mean,
Okay,
there's some
no.
worlds where this could be a Zoo hand, but that would be pretty ridiculous.
I'm thinking about this. I just can't see it happen, because we saw Frozen Ice's curve earlier, and it just wasn't very good. But Gara really has a good hand.
Yeah,
Like, this
and
is...
Frozen Ice doesn't.
perfect.
Has a good turn one, but like no follow up. So it really
I
has
wouldn't
to
even
hope that
say this is a good turn one. When you're a Zoo and you're gonna play Flame Imp on turn one, you can see like Frozen Ice's expression. Oh, I'm just gonna take 3 damage, and then the opponent's gonna play Leopard, and I'm gonna take 2 more damage. And it's like basically it's a
mini-bot.
trade, and I lose 5 health.
Yeah,
Life
Gara's
sucks.
in an amazing position here with not only the almost Phase Hunter's early game, like this is perfect, and he's got the Inoyotron to save himself from any type of funky removal plays that Frozen Ice might be attempting, and he's got the Shield Mini Bot and the Knife Shoulder. That doesn't even account for any top decks that he gets from now on, so that's just
This might be
insane.
one of Gara's toughest turns because he has like 7 possible plays. I just count them all up. Like I think
Yeah.
there's 7. But the ones that are most in contention would be Coin Shield and Minibot and Infiltrator, Coin Leopard Gnome.
But think about I think he's considering Voidwalker being an issue. Like if you play Lepronome and Worgen Infiltrator, then Voidwalker is a problem, so you're forced to play Inoyotron to stall a bit. I guess.
Yeah, the thing is, Shield and Minibot is also not so good about Voidwalker here too. So bad news is Frozen Ice continues to whiff. Oof.
So many
This is
expensive.
It could come down to a Bane of Doom. Like, this game might actually rely on a Bane of Doom to do something amazing for Frozen Ice. Like, a Felguard would be good. Mal'Ganis, obviously. Jaraxxus is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And the thing is, even if it does happen, that Bane of Doom comes up with something ridiculous. It turns out that Frozen Ice is still unlucky because what he really needed was this early game control.
Like a Haunted Creeper last turn.
Yeah, last turn would have been amazing for the Creeper, but...
And
Frozen Ice
Gara has so many options. Gara has the options to either go Navjigler and then Worgen or Lepronome. Has to turn 4 through Silver, what is never bad.
Wow, Frozen Ice with Zutras in the past. The two games we've seen him play it haven't exactly been on point. It's been just a disaster every time. And now the Blessing of Kings to rub salt in the wound. If things happen to survive, which they should.
So, I guess Gara will go for the knife here. I don't see any reason to not go for it.
So
Well,
you
the
kill
thing
the
to think
2-1
about-
with the Anoyotron, and then you pop the Spider and Juggler 1-drop.
Right.
Yeah, or just ignore the spider.
Those are the two main plays. If you were to try to go for the juggle, you would do the Anoyotron last.
Alright, so he can't possibly pop the Spider after this. There's no way. Well, it's not a bad card, and now Bane of Doom's turn is coming up, so there might be a big swing for like one turn.
He really needs that big swing. There needs to be something that is really big out of the Bane of Doom here.
Yeah, there's also a decision to be made on whether or not you break this so you add more power to your board. And you do 1 damage to Anoyotron.
Yeah. By staying like this, though, you're less vulnerable to the Juggler, and you're almost guaranteed to get... Like, if there's no choice over champion, you're almost guaranteed to get the knife not to be that bad of a deal. If a minion gets played.
Muster. It's not even really good on this board, I guess, with the in-game boss and the Haunted Creeper.
Yeah.
You can either go with the... the 2 silver is pretty decent here, but the Blessing of Kings also puts a lot of pressure out.
Yeah, Iron Beak Owl would make sure you negate that, though, so I think ultimately... Well, if there was an owl, you would have probably seen it already, considering his turn 2 was so awful. It would have sound stopped the shielded mini-bot.
Alright, put your hands together if you're Frozen Ice.
Yeah,
It's
this
time
is
to
it. Iron Jesus, lend me your strength. What does he really want?
Jaraxxus, maybe?
Jaraxxus is better than Mal'Ganis, right?
Yeah.
So I guess ultimately he's looking for Jaraxxus. It'll trade into anything about for
he wants
about
Doomguard.
7 turns. Yeah,
Doomguard
Doomguard's
is
not
good,
even bad.
Or
Right.
Jaraxxus into an August is really good. But he needs something big, that's for sure. It's...
Yeah, it's gonna be a Flame Imp, just you watch, or Blood Imp, just you watch.
Aw. That will be so sad already with such a slow hand. He's thinking of doing it into the Anoyotron to get better trades with the Creeper.
I can see that, but if it doesn't work, then knives are going to be a big problem.
Oh,
Oh,
that's a good
wow.
one.
That's a good one as well.
Yeah.
It's not big, but it could become big. I mean, by proxy, I guess it's a big demon. Alright.
Still not attacking.
Well, do you have to be very aggressive here if you're Gara, or can you afford to play it somewhat slow? Because I mean, trading is going to possibly like backfire, but then
I think
defensive
that time
Argus
around
could
he
make
really
this
wanted to break the spider. Just because all of his minions have 1 health, so having 2 more spiders is a big deal.
Seems like he's just going aggressive here.
pure Shockadin style.
No.
And how does this actually wait? How does this Anoyotron? How does this Void Caller die ever?
Yeah.
The only way for it to die is for him to top deck Defensive Argus and then go through something.
If he attacked last turn into the Anoyotron, he called suicide in the Worgen, but then he still couldn't kill the Worgen at all.
Yeah. So Doomguard, discard the Egg and Dr. Boom. Oh man. Well, he could get back in the game if he top
needs
decks
to play
Defensive Argus.
Doomguard here.
Yeah, and hope. I mean, I guess you still want to keep Dr. Boom, but you really start needing to play Definitive Argus if you top deck it, so... Whoa! Nice job. Nicely done, but
So,
many top decks are in Gara's deck.
yeah. And all... Are you scared already that there is maybe that Mal'Ganis in the deck that comes out maybe next turn? Well, there is nothing still to put the White Walker into.
Reporting
Yeah.
duty.
So
I think the idea here is to let Lepronome win the game for you.
Shields off. Red alert.
Yeah, the owl should be kept for insurance against Defender of Argus.
Oh,
Oh, there it is.
Wow.
You can
It's
see
still
Frozen
not
Eyes smiling
fun,
up.
He's like, the only card I could have gotten that would have saved me, but then Consecration is a problem, Hammer of Wrath's a Consecration.
There are
There's a
too
problem
many
as well,
cards that are a problem.
My
Yeah.
shield for
including Lepronome number 2. That's pretty amusing.
His board power is 8, 10, 14, 16. You can do 6 right now to put him at 16.
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 power on board. It will be lethal anyways. I think there you silence the Imp Gang boss here. There's an 4 HP left. It depends what he's gonna do with this attack here, right?
Yeah, if he goes face, I think he
Yeah.
loses.
Then
and
he
if
loses.
he trades, yeah, he's dead. Okay. Well, that was a pretty close thing, and he did pick up the second Lepronome, so he might have been able to win it either way.
Yeah, and there was still the weapon, so it was 2 damage, so it didn't really matter what he will do with that attack. But
Yeah.
wow, and
Temple Storm is turning the table. I mean, I'm kind of surprised to see this, but 4-1 to 5-4 in the favor of Temple Storm. There's one deck left to go. Like, one deck.
it's the rogue, right? From
Yeah,
Arc.
it is. It is.
And
Against
they're-
the zoo.
Against the Zoo, against the Shaman. I guess Silent Storm will go first with the Shaman to get the better matchup. Well, Zoo is not a bad matchup either. I can see them also pick Zoo, but I expect here to go with the Silent Storm and going with the Shaman.
Yeah, I
Which
agree
one of these do
completely.
you like
Because
more?
the tiebreaker points do matter. You want to have as many wins as you can, so you get the best matchup going when it comes down
Yeah.
to this.
What's the win rate of Shaman against Mech Shaman against Rogue? Is it somewhere like 65% ish, or? I mean, they need to have the backstabs and the SIs very often, or a really sick Blade Flurry.
One card is actually really good against Rogue is sometimes Fell Reaver. If you just play it on turn 5, you either have to play 3 cards as a Rogue into it, or you sap it, but you know it comes back the turn afterwards. So sometimes this is a matchup where the Fell Reaver might matter. The matchup doesn't really go to fatigue. I've only played it from the Rogue perspective a lot, and when I had a Fell Reaver on the board, it sometimes was just enough for them to close the game, because I either had to sap it comes back, and I couldn't fatigue them. So it's hard to kill it for the Rogue.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna be playing the Rogue into the Shaman, so Sandstorm's gonna be trying to get that win to at least give a chance to his partner, maybe to seal a series with the Zoo deck. So somebody said, there was a bit of a stumble in the first loss with Temple Storm, but then they really came back strong, and there's a chance they're going to be able to close the series. If they do it, how many wins are they going to be up to? They're going to be up
They will go
2
to
wins, I
2
think.
wins. Yes, so
Alright.
they will be in the middle of the standings.
Yeah, only one of the teams actually gets eliminated from the first stage of the event. So you really don't want to be last, basically.
Yeah, this is actually a really important matchup for Celestial, because it is their chance, continues to be their chance to knock another team down to like last place with them, and then climb up from there. If you lose this one, not only do you like worsen your record, but you lose out on the chance to drag one team down.
That's a pretty good hand from Hype's side. So against the Mech Shaman, I mean, Zap-O-Matic's not going to be an issue. Fan of Knives with a Blood Mage later could be pretty solid. So we'll have to see what Sandstorm picked up for his starting hand, since he's first player and he doesn't get a 1-drop.
Yeah,
So
not just a
Hype's,
good hand, but an insane hand. Oh, and Silent Storm has a really bad hand.
Yeah, this is not at all what you want to be looking at.
Playing turn 2 Zep-O-Matic against the Rogue. Everyone knows the feeling probably with playing 3-2 Vanillas against the Rogue when they have the coin, the possibility SI7. It feels so
Yeah.
bad.
They can coin SI, they can backstab, they can coin Deadly Poison on the dagger. They've got about 17,000 plays. None of them really make you happy. So he doesn't play the 2-drop. He opts to just totem instead.
Yeah, definitely a wise choice given the experience that the opponent like could have this. Also, you keep in mind like how many cards the Rogue keep, and the Rogue definitely kept backstab and SI7 agents. So Sunstorm's like, okay, he has an answer. I don't even have a follow. So he makes like the lesser of two evils. This is a good play, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, he does pick up a 2-minion turn, but it's exactly what Soundstorm is going to be running into. Like, you know, the backstab SI.
It's
The board
still
is
so
gone.
low.
The board is gone. He doesn't even use up the coin. That's the impressive part.
Well, Hyped can consider now coining out the teacher maybe with the backstab. Well, it's not a bad either, but both plays are pretty nice here.
So many.
How safe does Hyped want to play this?
Probably as safe as possible in this matchup.
So we're not going to have... I don't think we'll be expecting anything but backstab SI in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Fan of Knives and trade into the 3-2 could see play, but then you're not putting anything on the board. Yeah.
This just feels perfect. I'm not sure if you want to attack now or that you want to have a 1-1 dagger up. It's pretty likely you want to play teacher next turn, so it might matter to just leave the dagger up.
Right, especially with both fans too. Leaving the dagger up is also good because you can do the teacher coin deadly poison.
It's a bit
You
sad
think-
maybe because you have only that one dagger, but it's still really good to also get the 2 1-1s against an aggressive deck like this Mech Shaman.
Right, every 1-1 you have, the Mech Shaman can't remove it, doesn't run Lightning Storm, and they're just going to be on the board to pretty much guaranteed do 1 damage to whatever you want without taking face damage. So that's a big deal.
Pay attention, class.
Reparation would be a big deal here if you're in the rogue position. You can actually get a little bit more flexibility.
I am ready to learn.
What would be a disaster?
He doesn't want to attack it and get Doomsayer.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's what I'm thinking is what would the disaster just... Oh man. Alright.
Right.
That's
Breathe
still
a sigh of
bearable.
relief.
I get scared every time. Like, you know, people say that card is controlled RNG. But I'm telling you, man, it's not. I'm getting laughed at by all the shredders in this world.
Soon you're going to be able to get Totem Golem with it.
Oh man, that's a good crackle. So 50% chance to kill it outright, and then Earthshock the 3-1. That's potentially putting Soundstorm back in control of the game next turn if Hype doesn't pick up something for the board. And he doesn't really yet.
There is a pretty nice curve now with the either Fel Reaver low tap into Dr. Boom, and I can even see here Avid playing the low tap because there is no minion being played when you had the option. So you know the hand is full of spells. Every minion while being played last turn.
Yeah, this is a nice rally from Sunstorm. He's going to be able to lock it up and then lock up this turn, get into Dr. Boom. That's a really good draw from Hyped. He drew a minion.
Yeah, he can actually attack into low step and heal himself back up to 29, I guess. Just to use up maybe a bit of the utility from the heal bot, unless he really wants to keep the dagger for the oil play.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
like
He
to
really
just
wants
keep
a
up the
2
dagger.
durability dagger here.
There is Boom.
Here we go. He's Soundstorm is starting turn 7 with the first bit of damage here, but
The Hype's got
there's a
what it
lot
takes
coming.
to nullify it, right? I believe Hyped has what he needs. Although he's like 1 mana off of really pulling it off. So there's a chance he just goes for Tinkers.
The flurry just looks really good because it clears the whole board. You're gonna take 7 damage. That's the only thing if you are attacking into the Doctor Room. You can also go with the Fan of Knives and just Tinker, but then you really rely on a good Tinker hit.
What he might be thinking about also is just to use the heal bot to deal 3 damage, and then just oil Blade Flurry, deals 4 to each. 1 damage goes to the Lotheb. That's a really weak board that he's going to be left with, but he'll take no damage.
Yeah. That's the safest way to really play it. Because otherwise Shaman, you're worried, is going to burst you down with Rock Biters and Lava Bursts and possibly the second Crackle they might have in their hand. That's probably the only play that really guarantees that he's going to be able to live more often than not.
Yeah, does a good amount of damage to the opponent too. 8 damage.
Does the 1/1 live? And it does. Wow, that's pretty good
really
for
good.
hype.
Double Fell Reverse again.
Here we go. No more deck. You don't need a deck anyway, right?
This is one of those cases where if Hyped discards Silent Storm's deck, Silent Storm has a good chance of discarding Hyped's face.
Yeah, he needs a prep. That's so big here. He's getting another 3 cards out. But there is no sap, so what I said already earlier, like the Fell Reaver on the board, and you can try to mill them, but it's too early to mill, I think.
Well, I mean, what do you do? Do you play a Azure Drake and try to get a sap? Or prep the same way that you still need it right now and Fan of Knives would give it to you? I mean, either way, Fan of Knives is good.
Azure Drake Fan at least kills the Zap-O-Matic here.
Right, and it draws deeper into what will hopefully be an answer.
Yourself a Shredder, not quite the answer he's looking for, but there is a lot of counter pressure, even from Silent Storm's perspective. Can you
Oh,
go
that's
all
really
in?
close.
Yeah, that's getting
15.
really close.
Oh,
Or rather, he's got 18. And
18 now.
it's just 5 off. Checks the decks real fast. Silent Storm has 11 cards left. Against a rogue deck with 9 mana, you might expect to lose the remaining part of your deck anyway, so sure, play the Fell Reaver.
Fell
Yeah, I
Reaver,
think-
Flame Tongue, and then Rock Bite Face with everything you've got, and then hope Lava Burst carries you.
You
I
can
think it's
also,
Fell Reaver, Flame Tongue, and then normal Totem.
yeah, you can always use the Rock Biter. Wow, I'm not going for it. Lava
Oh, he's gonna
Burst
play the
Azure
slow
Drake.
game still. Alright, so he
Okay.
doesn't want to die to Tinker's Oil Burst, I guess.
You can
Which
see
makes
that
sense.
he's like that he is really known maybe also for playing mid-range Shaman. That he likes
Yeah.
to trade a lot on the board, and it's,
He's the reasoning behind that is he's thinking, okay, Lava Burst is going to deal 5, but my Fell Reaver has a chance of dealing 8, and if that Drake is out there, I have a much higher chance of losing the Fell Reaver. In fact, it turns out to be a really good play because Eviscerate plus the 1/1 would have dealt 6 damage.
So now, are there any Farseer could come down to really kind of maybe save hype a little bit from his perspective? You double Eviscerate
double of this. Wow.
on the 8/8. You're gonna mill most of your opponent's deck, so he has to have, at least 7 damage from hand to kill you.
Well, at least the deck is gone, I guess. I mean,
It's not like you have
uh,
much of a choice, right?
No, it's like 18 cards that will be discarded, so I guess there is no deck left.
And
It's
Sprint
going to be
Sap
it,
should
given
carry.
that we know what Silent Storm's hand is. Hyped has won.
If he deals with this Fell Reaver at least next turn,
Oh, that's right.
then
There's still
he
the Fell
needs to,
Reaver.
he needs to deal with, like, if there comes a Town Totem, it might be really annoying.
Yeah, you need to sprint into Sap at least. I mean, that would help you a lot.
There
Like,
is
that-
still a sprint and there's double Sep left. Like,
That's
Yeah.
called
Like
way
the
ahead of
Monty.
time by me.
is he gonna
What if
trade
it
into the
doesn't
Earthen
work?
Ring here? He might trade
Um,
into the Earthen Ring. Like, he needs 2 attacks anyways from the
Sorry.
Fell Reaver.
Right. So it's all
So,
about, can you get an answer?
Ooh,
Oh.
prep sprint. There we go.
Surely he can. Surely he can.
Yeah, there is like 2 Seps left, right, in the deck. I mean, I expect him playing with 2 Seps at least.
Oh my god.
Oh, is it really
Uh-oh.
not gonna be a Sep?
Oh, the Sap.
You see Hype's reaction. Oh, wow.
He was breathing a sigh of relief right there at the end. That's Sap. That's
Still not over. He needs an answer next turn, too.
Well, he can play the Shredder now and probably set up for lethal with Blade Flurry, right? Or something along those lines. I'm not sure.
Is he gonna flurry maybe to
Yeah, he
get rid of
could
the
do it.
totems?
He could do it. And then redagger up.
But he
Or
knows
kill-
there's only the Oh wow, this game.
Yeah, that Fell Reaver might actually be enough to carry Soundstorm forward.
Oh yeah, there's only gonna be one Shredder so on board, and there are 2 minions that are useless. So he really needs to top deck a spell here. That's the. Oh wow.
Right.
Oh wait, it
both
could
Viscerates have been
Fatigue do
played.
it.
Oh, fatigue is gonna do it. No.
He's on 7 health right now, so he's got, 7 more
has
fatigue, so 2
Santa.
turns.
Oh,
No, but there will be the attack from the Shredder in the
Yeah,
face.
he's dead. That
He's
is
dead.
Yeah,
Wow.
the fatigue's gonna deal 3 damage, and Hyped actually, taking into account the
If
fatigue
that was a
damage,
town totem, Silent Storm will have won.
you're right, 25% chance to win the game.
Ah, what a game! So close.
That was a really intense series, 4-1 for Team Celestial, and then Tempo Storms comes back just like 6-4, finishing off the entire match. That was a big turnaround for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, and really well played after being so behind 4-1 and taking the series 6-4 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you've got to hand it to them though. Like sticking to their guns, they're really playing well. I think the aggro pally from Gar, we were a little worried about initially, but it turned out to do fairly well. Although Frozen Ice's zoo draws were ultimately not quite good enough, so that's going to position Team Celestial still at the bottom of the rankings at the moment. So yeah, not quite where they wanted to be at the end of this.
Yeah, they really have to
Special.
take off some wins now to go up in the standings and go away from that last place. What they probably want is just going for that 6th place.
Yeah,
They're going
well,
to be really rooting for Team Liquid to lose this next matchup, which is coming up.
Yeah, we'll have Team Liquid playing right up against, I believe, Team Archon, if I'm not mistaken, with Firebat,
Right.
Soleil, and XXO. That's going to be a pretty intense series against Best of 11, same format. Each player brings 2 decks with the whole bench rule that we already know about. I mean, wow, Team Celestial must not be, too happy about this. This is really a devastating blow to them because their standings are almost unrecoverable. Almost.
Not quite. What they really need, they really need Liquid to lose here, because otherwise each team is going to be 2 wins ahead. But if Liquid loses, then there's going to be one team which is in contention for last place along with them.
All right, so they still have a chance of Well, I mean, they still have a chance. Obviously, it's just incredibly tough for them. All right, well, that being said, guys, we're done with the first series. We'll be taking a short break in between the 2 series. Before we go, a quick shout out to Amazon and Alpha Drafts for sponsoring the tournament. Also, I'd like to let you know the Amazon is actually running a giveaway. If you want to check it out, it's on teamarchon.com/Amazon. They're going to give you a 50% discount on card packs. So if you're looking for card packs that aren't too expensive, you can check them out. There'll be up to 2,000 winners for US, UK, and Germany residents. So, just check it out. It's on teamarchon.com/Amazon. It's a giveaway. That being said, guys, we'll be right back after a short break. Don't go anywhere.